9BF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester, an Odyssey sports station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Amherst. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Gene's a big-timer, a social misfit. Clueless to the title of the biggest buskeg hits. Chuck Munchie's goons have the last say. So thanks for your time, Mr. Mayo. Danger likes his cold ones and he likes his bears. But this is Rochester, cute Francesa.
Oh, who cares?
He's critical of Sean, he's critical of Al. And of course he married Sandy, because she's Italian. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
Gino, I have found Rochester's new hot night spot. You know, we don't go out the way we used to go out.
Like, since when did you start going out at night?
Let me tell you something. And it's an unassuming place. I don't think anybody would have identified it as Rochester's new hot night spot. But it has all of the elements that you get or that we remember from going out late at night in Rochester. You have energy, you have excitement, you have a wide variety of people, you have love, you have tears, you have warm embraces, you have security, you have violence, you have anger, and you have relief when the night is over.
I get it. This is like some sort of riddle. Are we talking like an arcade? What are we talking about?
The Frederick Douglass Rochester International Airport.
Ah, there we go. Yeah.
I was there last night after midnight. Excuse me, to pick up my wife and daughter who've been in London for the last 10 days. And I was expecting to walk into the airport, have it be sleepy and maybe a handful of people. Let me tell you something. Jumping. Dozens and dozens of people just waiting for the flight to arrive, waiting around baggage claim, and you know the scene. There's families waiting for loved ones, lots of hugging, lots of kissing, lots of exchanging of gifts, lots of tears of joy.
Where's the violence? That's where I'm...
Oh, I'm getting to it.
All right.
You get to the baggage claim. Inevitably, the people that are collecting their bags are groggy. Somebody's going to grab the wrong bag and walk away. The violence came, and it wasn't really violence. I'm exaggerating. I mean, there was security throughout the airport, as you would expect. But you go, as we're leaving the airport, the parking situation, and there's a mass rush of cars trying to get out of the parking area. And there's, a handful of lanes, and you prepay for your ticket in the terminal, and you insert your ticket. You go out, it should be on your way, but apparently that's too challenging for some because there's a backup, there's people driving the wrong way, there's people turning around and leaving their lane, and just basically mass chaos ensues. And there's one poor, sad son of a bitch working this area of the airport, trying to conduct all of this traffic and make it all go, when really all any of us need to do is just do it the way you're supposed to do it. Take the ticket, bring it into the terminal, prepay in advance, put the ticket, in the machine as you're leaving, and voila, everything is good. It didn't happen that way. I mean, I saw some middle fingers. I saw some people getting out of their cars. I saw plenty of verbal altercations. Like, whew, I haven't felt this kind of exhilaration since back in the day with my man Carlos at the grind on St. Paul Street.
It used to be the first half hour was free. Did that kind of go away, and is that what people are upset about if they got to wait in line? Hey, you're not going to give it to me? I've been trying to get out here.
I think a lot of people do the thing where they'll pull up. I don't think you're supposed to do this, but I think we just kind of turn a blind eye where they pull up to where arrivals come in, and you just kind of wait in your car on the curb.
No, you're welcome to do that. You go to the cell phone line. There is literally a lot, and this is true whether it's you got to get out more. You got to go to the airport more.
See, it's such a miserable experience
yeah,
for me.
like it's easy. You just go to the cell phone lot, and when your loved one is ready to be picked up, then you just kind of drive around, you pick them up, and out you go. And that's true for Rochester. It's true for Pearson up in Toronto. I've done that. It's easy.
Well, then. I've been contributing to the growth and the improvement projects at the Greater Rochester International Airport.
When I was there inside the Terminal S, I see a lot of construction, but they don't. It was like a Saturday afternoon at like 4 o'clock. Nothing was open. Not even a little Hudson News. I'm like, wait a second. Like, you've got to have. Like, if you go beyond the security, I don't know. But like for everybody else that's kind of waiting, they didn't have like even a coffee area for anybody.
Well,
so.
I felt the same rush leaving the airport last night as I felt back in the day leaving the nightclub. I'm groggy. I'm a little buzzed. Because I was watching the Thursday night game. I've got my family is with me, which would be a different thing than a different environment than what I was when I was in my 20s. But I'm like, oh, something's going to break out here. I thought there was going to be a little fracas. I was expecting there to be. I had my head on a swivel there for a few minutes. I wouldn't have expected it at the Frederick Douglass Greater Rochester International Airport.
You got the name down right. I look, when I was there last time, I told you the Saturday one, but dropping off my son, and it was like 4:30 in the morning. I'm like, wow, there's that many people here at the airport. Love the airport getting used here.
Yeah, well, it's the improvements that they've made. Let's face it. I mean, it's a good-looking airport now. It's not crappy. The airport is coming together. I mean, there's construction now, and it's kind of a mess on the ground floor. They're renovating everything, but yeah, you kind of love the improvements that are happening there. I just was surprised that so many of us couldn't figure out the way to get out of the parking lot. That was it was a mad rush, and we're talking about like nearly 1 o'clock in the morning, a mad rush to get out, and nobody seemed to know exactly how to get out. Couldn't insert their ticket, wasn't taking their payment, whatever the case may be. It was a little bit of a scene.
See, I thought you were going to start off the show with this because Chris in Kentucky tweeted this. Chris, I was one step ahead of you. I watched the video before you sent it, but maybe Danger saw it. There's a new, this YouTube series, a 10-minute video on the history of the Rochester, New York subway. You want evidence there, Danger. There it is. If it's on YouTube, we had this. Next, we'll have like
anybody can create content. Okay, we're all content creators, and if you want to make up a story about how we were a big city once upon a time and we actually had a subway, yeah, good for you. I mean, I'm not spending my free time doing that, but if that's what you want to do with your time, that's great.
Actually, we weren't a big city back then, and the premise of this was noteworthy at the time because it was kind of an all-in move. They thought this would spur additional development. It lasted about 30 years and then just kind of went away. So.
Yeah. Well, what are you going to tell me next? That all of our business was done on the Erie Canal and that was made to make sure that our region would grow and prosper, please?
The 490 is the old Erie Canal Banks, Danger. That's how far. Yes. I know. You're shocked.
Get out of here. We've got a great show lined up for you. Oh, and speaking of content creation, I just got to get this off my chest because it's weighing on me and I feel really, really kind of guilty about this, and I'm gonna confess to you, our regulars, that this is on me and solely on me. One of our regulars, Michael, reached out with an innocent question earlier today on Elon's Twitter X. We're always accessible. You can reach out to us at any time at the Fan Rochester. I'm at AKA Mike Danger. He's at Gene Battaglia. And Michael just wanted to know how come just our daily interviews on the Sports Bar are being uploaded to podcast, not the full shows.
Yeah, and Michael and everybody else that listens in Buffalo, I didn't tell you this. I met Michael.
I didn't realize Michael's in Buffalo.
Yes, he's in Buffalo. Met him at he went to school here, but he still listens to the show. Met him at one of the Matt Perino, Ryan Talbot Shoutcast events. So really super guy, and says he loves the show and listening online all the time. Look, Danger and I understand, like, you lead busy lives, but the way we do it through the app right now, you can just go back in the rewind feature. That's the easiest way from 3 to 6.
If you want to listen to the show, if you missed the show and you want to hear the whole show, within the next 24 hours, you can go inside the Odyssey app. When you search out the Sports Bar, not only will you get our guest appearances that we post in podcast form, but also our full show is available for you segment by segment. I can also, though, Michael, and this is my confession, I could also, I'll do what I can as best I can to post our full shows when I can. It's a matter of time. I mean, it's just Gino and I running around like crazy with our other responsibilities at Odyssey and not having a dedicated producer for our show. I know it sounds like I'm making excuses. And I am making excuses because it's not my standard. I want to provide you guys with as much as we can, as much as we offer. I want to give you our best every single day, and we do our best every single day. You'll continue to get that, Michael, and everybody else. So in the future, if I can get the full episodes up, the full shows up hour by hour in podcast form, Mike, you know I will do that as best I can when I can. It's just a matter of time for us. I think Gino and I, if there's one thing that's frustrating about doing what we do, and I love the 3 hours that we get to spend here, it's, man, I wish we had more time.
Well, I think I have to assume that not everybody knows, like, our situation here. You and I are almost doing this, I don't want to say part-time job, but our full-time jobs here.
Right.
Mine, I am an account manager. I go out and I sell ads for our fine properties and digital and the Buffalo Bills radio network, and I'm happy to do it. And they came to me with this opportunity years ago, and I said, who's going to be the co-host? And they said, Danger. I'm like, sign me up. And it's been great since. And 3 hours on the air, not that anybody cares about this, but you know, I just don't show up 3 hours in the air. We're writing, we're doing everything else. But, boy, I would love to do this show as a full-time job.
I mean, imagine what that looks like.
Yeah,
imagine what that would be.
Yeah, I'm kind of envious of other shows that's what they do, and then they produce it and they post the audio and they do this.
Or they have producers.
Yeah, and then somebody asked me, well, who's your producer? Who lines up the guest? That's me.
Yeah.
Well,
who screens calls? That's Gene.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Who runs the board? That's me. Yeah. Who's responsible for all the sound effects and all the actualities? Me again. Like and big credit to Dan DeLorean, not our official producer, but a guy who we call him the bounty hunter of the finest audio in the galaxy because he does do a good job while he's working with One Bills Live to get us the audio that we need. So we're a small tribe here in the Sports Bar trying our best to get you our content as frequently and as regularly as possible. And when I got that from Michael, I was disappointed in myself, really, more than anything. I'm like, oh, he's right. I mean, I should make an effort more frequently to get the full show available to you via podcast form, but I know everybody listens in different ways. We want to get it out there as many ways as we can. I think we're up to 8 different ways that you can have our content now. You can consume our content, right? I mean, we've got the Odyssey app. You can hear us on 95.7 FM. You can hear us on AM 950. You can hear us on your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. Oh, 92.5 FM HD2, right? Yep. You can get us on YouTube at The Fan Rochester. That's our channel there. You can get us on Twitch, twitch.tv/The Fan Rochester. That's our stream there. And there's one more that I'm forgetting.
No, it's 7.
It's 7?
8 is in progress. Eventually, we will get to X.
9 times.
We won't stop till we get to 9 platforms.
Yeah, we're at 7 platforms.
We need 9 platforms.
My 7 platforms.
Yeah. I'm going to pivot from that one, Gene. We have a great show. You know. We have a great show lined up for you this afternoon. We're going to talk plenty of college football. Our superhero of the spread from the fantasy life. Working with Matthew Berry now. Thor Nystrom stops by at 4:25.
Yeah, I love Thor, and I'm happy for Thor. And certainly Thor, based up in Minnesota, we'll ask him about his Vikings off to the 2-0 start. His Gophers play Iowa. I would think you bet the under in that still to this day. But we'll ask him about some of these other college matchups this weekend, including Danger tonight. Syracuse, the national stage on ESPN, taking Stanford. They're favored. Do they stub their toe here? Like, what is, like, I think a lot of us saw the season going like this for the Orange. Like, wait a second. Pretty easy opening here. Yeah, if they get by Georgia Tech, they should be. And they get Holy Cross next week. Ooh. You know, they should be starting out. What kind of season could this actually be for Syracuse? Or are they really going to be a paper tiger? We will talk to Thor Nystrom, your superhero of the spread, that's coming up in the 4 o'clock hour.
Andy Barrett stops by for his weekly visit with us here in the Sports Bar, 325. That's coming up here in about 10, 15 minutes or so. Andy Barron's from Yahoo Fantasy. We'll talk some fantasy football as Week 3 got underway last night, Thursday Night Football between the Jets and the Patriots.
Did it? I didn't watch a second of it. I digress.
I did. I watched it for you, Gene. I know how important watching your Mets win and put up double digits against the Phillies meant to you. So I fell on the sword and I watched that sorry excuse for a football game last night.
It's there are issues here. We've got Jordan Love, questionable. We've got, hey, do you really trust Sam Darnold in Minnesota? Are the Texans, are they going to force feed Stephon Diggs? So many interesting fantasy questions that we can pose to Andy Behrens. And maybe we ask him to weigh in on this Mel Kiper Jr., like sounding the alarm about too high safeties, because in fantasy terms this year, wide receiver scoring,
it's down.
It's way down. But again, it's 2 weeks. I mean, everything's cyclical. So we'll get the thoughts of Andy Behrens, the fantasy expert from Yahoo. He'll be joining us here shortly.
You can pull up a stool at 866-4326, 585-866-4FAN. And as I mentioned earlier, we're always on Elon's Twitter. That's X, at the Fan Rochester, if you want to engage with us there. So the Jets moved to 2-1 after dispatching of the Patriots. The under was a good play last night. The under passing yards prop for Jacoby Brissett. I pat myself on the back for that as well. He looked horrible last night. That hit.
No, but that's not what anybody's talking about. Everybody's talking about Aaron Rodgers and Robert Saleh, the video exchange. Again, I didn't watch it, but everybody has a take, and I can only relate this to my own personal experience and the way it kind of looked to me. And what I'm talking about is Jets score a touchdown, if you haven't seen this, and Saleh is going in for the hug, but kind of midway through the hug, he realizes, it's maybe I shouldn't be doing this, and Rodgers kind of pulls back a little bit, and Rodgers gives him a glare. You see him mouthing something, and afterward, Rodgers was asked about it, and he said, I said 2-touchdown lead. And you look at the lips, and it looks like he says 2-touchdown lead. But I always think it's a bad look when you glare down your head coach. Danger, one time, and I swear I don't remember who I did this because, as you say, I'm a big timer, right? But I remember how I felt after. And this was a business acquaintance, and I went in for the hug. And immediately it was kind of a pullback, like, oh, you shouldn't do that. And then I felt really bad and never said anything about it and just shook the person's hand, and that was it. That's how it kind of looked to me last night. Like, it's really awkward when you go for the hug for somebody, and then they don't want to hug back.
I'm looking at it right now. He rebuffs him almost as if Robert Saleh is a family member. That's kind of the way I look at it. He just looked at him like, okay, I'll push him away and I'll deal with you later. It's a nothing to me. Well, here's something, though. Last night, Rodgers kind of looked like Rodgers again, right? He's 40. He's the oldest active player in the NFL. But we saw him make plays with his legs, which we hadn't seen him do in a while. And if Rodgers is playing with the chip on his shoulder and, saying things like 2-touchdown lead to your head coach and, like, acting the way he's at, it feels like he's playing with a bit of a chip.
Maybe that's what they need. And maybe that was the button Green Bay pushed when they traded up for Jordan Love. How could you do that? You do not realize, well, people kind of misremember what happened next, is that clearly Aaron Rodgers was kind of on the down cycle there. But the second that Jordan Love got drafted, funny thing happened. Aaron Rodgers took his game to an MVP level.
Yeah, they lit a fire under his butt.
Yeah. So is that what we're seeing? Is this what we should have seen last year? I'm going to point out this. It's the Patriots. It's a short week. It's September. Look, for Jet fans, positives. You're 2-1. You're exactly where I thought you would be this time of year. Nobody really had you beating the Niners, and you won an ugly game in Tennessee, and here you took care of business. And when you look what's coming up, hey, Sam Darnold, you better beat Sam Darnold. You get Bo Nix coming up, stop. And then you get the Bills. Let's see what happens on that Monday night, October 14th.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. I think these players, I love players that play with the chip on their shoulder, that play as if they have something to prove. And it certainly feels like Rodgers has heard, the noise around his play. Oh, he can't move, or he can't do what we have seen him do in the past. He makes it look easy when he's on. And he was on last night. And again, you're right. It's a short week. It's Thursday night. Thursday Night Football remains a hard-to-watch product. It's not a great game. It's not clean. it's clear that there's not enough preparation that goes into these games the way they're executed. And if you're a bad team, then you're going to struggle even more mightily because you have that much less preparation. But I also think like when you're even a guy like Josh Allen, and he hears the chatter around, this guy's overrated. His peers, voted him as overrated. You don't think he hears that? No, I guarantee you he hears that. And again, when you're a guy like Josh Allen who's never really been given those fair shakes, he's starting to show like, okay, doubt me, keep doubting me, and I'll keep proving you wrong. And I kind of like the players that are playing with chips on their shoulder. They play better when they've got that I've been disrespected kind of feeling to them.
Well, there's a dichotomy with Aaron Rodgers, right? He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's one of the best ever. Sure, he only has the one Super Bowl, but when you saw him making plays the way he did, that's special. And on the field, it's good for the league. It's great for the league that he's in New York. It makes them relevant, and it's better quarterbacking. Who wouldn't want better quarterbacking in the league? It's everything else that we've come to learn along the way with Aaron Rodgers, how he conducts his business, that, all right, maybe if you bought in for him with the discount double check and all the stuff along the way, and boy, he was the victim way back when because mean Brett Favre when, and then he won a Super Bowl, but then his image changed along the way. So for Jet fans, I think you just kind of plug your nose to that, and this is what you signed up for.
When you get tatted up, that's what I want to know. I guess I haven't been following along with his off-season escapades, but I'm looking at him playing now with the gym. Like, well, we got some ink on his arm there. Yeah, Rodgers getting a little tatted. Was one of those darkness retreats. Yeah. I don't know what the significance is or the meaning is behind it, but yeah, that was something different than I noticed last night about Aaron Rodgers.
We'll get to baseball later in the show here. Trust me. Mets. First time in franchise history, Mike Danger, they've scored 10 runs in 3 straight games.
This guy. I thought it could go more than 20 minutes without you talking about the Mets, but here we are.
Oh, here we are. There's just, look, I'm sorry. Like, you can't have it both ways or you're going to make
We're going to talk about the
team
Mets
over Shohei.
Shohei Ohtani, because that's what I expected you to do. Exactly what let's bury the lead. Let's forget about what's happening in Major League Baseball that's actually historic, but instead let's talk about your Mets. That's fine.
Okay, pivot to Shohei. And I put this out there last night. If there's a better single game performance at the plate in baseball history in a game, what is it? What is it?
Yeah,
that was it.
He's special. He's special. I love, though, where we are at this point of the season, and you brought this up to me, who you're playing against, the situation that it all matters in Shohei going for 6 for 6.
Yeah, if they're playing the Padres, top of the 7th, and runners on second and third, first base is open, Shohei's at the plate. You're not pitching to Shohei. Like, put him on and try to get the out. Schumacher, the Marlins manager, the pitcher looks over at him, camera catches it, and you can see what he says. F that. Pitch to him. It's almost like, hey, this is spring training. I want to see what you're made of.
Well, you're not made of much because
No.
Shohei had his way, and a historic performance this season by the Dodgers DH. I still think Lindor is the MVP. I think when you talk about just value, what he has brought to the Mets this year is, the Dodgers were supposed to be good, even without Shohei. Shohei, a guy who's had a remarkable season, but has done it as a DH, he'll get plenty of opportunities to be the MVP, and he'll be able to replicate his success both on the mound and at the plate in future years. This year, to me, it's still Lindor, and that's me. That you heard me. That's me giving your Mets some credit. I'm not always going to say that you're a misfit, G.
Fellow misfit Met fan Dan DeLorean wants me to keep a low profile, which I will try to do.
Okay.
Not run my mouth, talk about mosquitoes and every other cliche you throw my way.
Yeah. That's a big win. It's a big win against the Phils last night for your Amazons. All right, let's get to Andy Behrens and talk some fantasy football. Yahoo Fantasy's Andy Behrens stopping by next. We'll set your Week 3 lineup on the Fan.
You're listening to Sports Update.
Just a walkthrough this morning for the Buffalo Bills as they get ready for their opponent Monday night, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Defensive tackle Ed Oliver's prime.
Yeah, I'm ready. Ain't nothing like a primetime game Thursday night or Monday night game at home. So it's going to be loud. It's going to be, under the lights. So I kind of got used to playing under the lights last year, playing later games, a different time games. So I like playing underneath the lights.
Andy Behrens, Yahoo Fantasy, joining us next in the Sports Bar. Green Bay listing Jordan Love, the quarterback, as questionable for their game in Tennessee on Sunday. The college football weekend beginning tonight with Syracuse at home against Stanford. Tomorrow here on The Fan, St. John Fisher hosting Keystone. Our coverage will begin at 11:30 a.m. It's the final weekend of the season for the Rochester Red Wings. They are home hosting the Iowa Cubs. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
They've raised the bar on Rochester Sports Talk. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Week 3 of the NFL season got underway last night. Thursday Night Football, the Jets dispatching of the New England Patriots. We welcome in Andy Behrens from Yahoo Fantasy to help set your Week 3 fantasy football lineups. And Andy, if we can start with this was Mel Kiper yesterday talking about how if the NFL wants to increase scoring, they should ban too high safety looks on defense. And it's no secret through 2 weeks, wide receiver scoring is down, passing is down. Kiper's putting it on that too high safety look. Where do you come down on this? Because and we guys like you and I and Gino have done this a long time. We've seen how the NFL kind of moves in cycles. Where do you come down on Kiper's take?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that people really, really enjoyed the NFL as it was like 2018 to 2020, right? And offense is just crazy, and all the good quarterbacks are throwing for 5,000 yards. I get it, but man, like some of us came up in an era like the real rule changes that went in around how receivers could be treated and coverage and like what exactly you could do to a receiver as they went downfield. Like that stuff goes back to 1978. And prior to that, every game was 10-6. Like we just didn't have these shootouts, and people loved the NFL. I don't know. People are going to love the NFL. I guess it's a minor annoyance that passing and scoring has been down over the first couple of weeks. But what we like about sports is the one side adjusts to the other side, and then there are adjustments back, and it's a constantly fluid thing. And I don't know. We don't need to change the rules every year to try to get back to a status quo that actually has not been really the status quo for most of the history of the game.
Andy, I won one of my leagues just because I had Alvin Kamara on the team. That was just enjoyable looking up every time. Oh, he scored again there. The question's about the Saints here because they beat Carolina, and then, it was a one-sided kind of affair against Dallas where Carr didn't have to do too much in the passing game. Is this offense for real as they get the Eagles coming up on Sunday?
Yeah, two ways to answer that. One, are they for real in that they're going to score 45 points a game? No, probably not. We're going to get some regression at some point. The league is going to get a good look at them, but you have to really like everything that Clint Kubiak is doing. Two big things that I have really enjoyed so far about the Saints in particular. One, they're not, Rashid Shaheed has really popped in both games so far, and he's a guy with incredible speed. He's a phenomenal playmaker. But they're doing a little more with him to set up some of these big plays. Like they ran a couple of really short crossers to him before they got the splash play last week. I thought that was really effective. So he's not just purely a clear out guy or a go route guy anymore. And then number two, no disrespect to Taysom Hill, but he doesn't yet have a touch inside the red zone. And Alvin Kamara leads the NFL in carries inside the 10-yard line. So it's possible that this offensive coordinator has just said, hey, what if we just gave the ball to our best player when we get near the goal line and we don't do all the quirky look at me, Sean Payton-y stuff with Taysom Hill, right? Like, what if we just gave the ball to our best player? And so far it's working.
I feel like every week that Jordan Love is going to be questionable, we're going to ask a question about what to do with Green Bay's offensive weapons. And honestly, going into Tennessee, I kind of hope Love takes another week to heal because I'd love to see the Malik Willis revenge game. But much like last week, I'm kind of torn on what to do with Green Bay and their offensive assets. Andy, how are you handling Green Bay heading into a weekend where we don't know if Jordan Love is going to get the start against Tennessee?
For starters, and this is not a real answer to your question, but for starters, I can't think of a game you know what? Now that I'm actually saying it, you remember back when Chan Gailey turned Tyler Thigpen into a thing, and it seemed miraculous, and that happened for a handful of games, and it was really fun. But since then, I can't remember a time when I was as impressed by the job that a head coach had done, given the limitations of his personnel. The Green Bay game plan last week, which was way beyond, hey, let's run the ball a lot. Those run looks were really fun, and every one of them involved misdirection. And then later in the game, they would do something very different off of the same look that they had shown earlier. And they put Malik Willis in situations where when he did pass the ball, it was highly advantageous. It was first down after we've run the ball down your throat 6 or 7 times. It was just a great game plan. And if Green Bay, this is crazy as a Bears fan for me to say this, but I do hope that people who vote for Coach of the Year, I hope they remember this game if Green Bay is in the playoffs when we get to the end of the year, because that's got to be the single greatest coaching job that I've seen anyone do in the league in a really long time. To get that game out of Malik Willis and that offense was just incredibly impressive. The short answer to your actual question is, if Malik Willis is a quarterback, you can sit all the Packers receivers, especially in a non-bye week like this, where you probably have some good options. We can make a case for Jaden Reed because he's really the guy that they, even if they're not throwing, they'll scheme some touches for him. They'll give him a jet sweep. They'll line him up in the backfield a couple times. They did that last week to great effect against Indianapolis. So he's a little fun and gadgety, but you have to sit the rest of them. If Love comes back this week, I'm probably not plugging him into lineups right away. I want to see it first, but I think we can feel a little bit better about Reed and Watson.
Andy Barron's Yahoo Fantasy, our guest here on a Friday as we help you optimize your lineups here for the weekend. A matchup I want to ask you about, 2-0 teams, Houston and Minnesota. Diggs going back to Minnesota, that's certainly an angle, and does that cause for the targets to be skewed here in any such way with Diggs? I'm sure he's going to get booed up there. And then what do you do with the running back situation in Houston? Are we feeling comfortable if it ends up being Cam Akers at this point?
I will never ever be comfortable with Cam Akers. No, that doesn't mean I'm not starting him. And I think I'm starting him in 4 leagues, right? I got, just like everybody, I got hit really hard by injuries last week. Lost Pacheco in a lot of places, so now I'm looking at Cam Akers. Do I trust him? No, I don't think he's super efficient. He put the ball on the ground last week, and that's going to stick in the minds of coaches. So, but he is probably going to carry the mail for that team. They don't have a lot left now. That it doesn't seem like Dameon Pierce is going to be able to go either. So without Mixon and Pierce, it is probably going to be the Cam Akers show, for better or worse. It's a little bit of a revenge game for him too, right? There's a bunch of people going back to face the Vikings. The Houston receiving core is I don't know. In some ways, it's not really difficult each week because they're all great. Tank Dell is great. He sees the field a little bit less than the other guys, but he's kind of right back into his old role, which is about 2/3 of the snaps, huge downfield opportunities. So I kind of like them all, and I feel like Nico Collins at this point has really, especially with these first couple games that we've seen, where he's not just a deep guy. He's not doing just one thing each time. He's so good at every level of the field. He's made highlight catches. Nico Collins, as much as anyone, was the difference in that Bears-Texans game last week. So I'm just impressed with all those receivers. Nobody, in all likelihood, you don't have 2 or 3 of them on a roster, so I think you can feel good about any of them.
I'm curious about some of the hotter waiver wire pickups from this week, Andy. And the biggest one on top of the list, you mentioned Isaiah Pacheco. Are managers who went out and invested in Carson Steele going to be disappointed after his performance on Sunday night against Atlanta, or are they gonna wish that they rather pivoted and went in the direction of Samaje Perine? What's your take on that Kansas City backfield now with Pacheco on IR?
Yeah, I'll tell you, the one thing I won't feel bad about is not going heavier after Samaje Perine. Like, I think he's a fine player. I think he's a fine pro. I think he's had a wonderful career, but I don't like he's not Jerick McKinnon. I don't think he can have one of those runs. I don't think he's that sort of player. Again, super competent, does everything a running back needs to do at the sort of minimal level that it needs to be done in order to play. But I just, there's a thrill of the unknown factor with Carson Steele. We all saw his preseason. It was tremendous. He was a cartoon. He's basically just like a bumper car of a person. And he almost, I don't know, it's not an advisable rushing style because he just seems to seek out collisions and bounce off of them. And it's wild and it's fun. And he just had an incredible preseason, and his best runs have been some of my favorite runs of the preseason and regular season. And more to the point, they were using him while Pacheco was fully healthy. So they were working in Carson Steele. They like him. He fumbled last week, and they went right back to him. So they're kind of in on Carson Steele. I think that's a really good sign. The one kind of flyer out there, and we don't know which way it's going to go, is Kareem Hunt. Because Kareem Hunt, like, even if Kareem Hunt doesn't play this week, and that would surprise me a little bit if he did, but even if he doesn't, he's somebody who has familiarity with the coaching staff, with the team. He was also really bad last year. Now, was he really bad? Because when I say really bad, I mean almost no yards after contact, like bottom of the league in terms of yards after contact. Didn't make anybody miss. He found the end zone a few times, which was kind of, there's a little touchdown deodorant to his season, but it was not good. And he's an older player who might just be at the end, but he was also playing through an injury last year. I believe he had a hernia. So if that was the issue and he's actually still Kareem Hunt, he could get interesting in future weeks.
Andy Barron's our guest here in the Sports Bar. Andy, we're so close to the Bills here on our show and in our area that sometimes we can be blind to things. And what happened last Thursday night down in Miami is Bills fans very satisfying to watch James Cook run for 3 touchdowns. And that's for any team just to kind of pound the rock the way they did. Now I look at this matchup this coming week, and I'm pulling up the stats from last year against Jacksonville. James Cook, 5 carries, -4 yards in London. 2 other running backs, Harris and Murray, both gone now, a combined 5 carries. So are we believing that the Bills can run against this Jacksonville team? And if so, does that come at a cost to maybe some of those secondary targets? Because one of the questions we get up here is, hey, what about Dalton Kincaid? What about Dawson Knox? Some of those guys aren't getting the production we were all hoping for here.
Yeah, I don't think Mel Kiper is going to be too happy with the way that Buffalo wants to play moving forward, right? It sure seems like what we saw in the second half of last season, where they became a little bit more run-focused team, is definitely carrying into this year, and it's a fantasy problem, right? Because we spent a lot of the preseason kind of wringing our hands about, okay, we think there's a right answer somewhere in Buffalo's receiving room. Who is it? Is it Kincaid? Is it Khalil Shakir? It might just be that Josh Allen continues to be a top 3 fantasy quarterback, but there is no right answer in the receiving room for the Bills, because clearly they go into every game wanting to throw it about 20 times and wanting to run it 30, right? And that's going to be an ongoing fantasy problem. It doesn't give any receiver a real chance to have week-to-week consistency. Obviously, eventually, Buffalo is going to run into some buzzsaw teams in the AFC, and they are going to be forced to throw it 40 times. And I can't wait for those weeks because that's when we get to see the full expression of Josh Allen's talent. But I don't think we're going to be there this week with Jacksonville because, man, they were terrible last week. That was, one of my things is I like to go through every Tuesday and Wednesday. I watch every game from start to finish, and man, they were just a theater of pain last week. Trevor Lawrence played as bad as I've seen him play. He had one big shot to Brian Thomas that kind of made his passing day look a little bit less intolerable. But man, he nearly threw a couple of picks. He was rough. So I just don't think Jacksonville can put up much of a number. So I think the run's going to be in play all day, and I kind of think we know what Buffalo wants to do.
Andy, the other Monday night game features Washington and Cincinnati, and positive reports out of Cincinnati. We may see T. Higgins make his season debut. He's been a participant in practice. How are you dealing with Higgins and the Cincinnati offense, knowing that they had a little bit of a wake-up call there against Kansas City. But if Higgins returns, I would imagine a guy like Jošević doesn't hold much value on your roster anymore.
Yeah, which is too bad, actually, because Jošević made two just absolute, like, I think he only got 2 targets last week. Both touchdowns, and both phenomenal. One was just a filthy route, and the other one was an incredible toe drag catch. He's pretty good. He's not T. Higgins good. So it's obviously good for Cincinnati. The matchup is great for Cincinnati. I mean, Washington is a very vulnerable defense. So I expect Joe Burrow to get right. I expect Jamar Chase to get right. He seems a little bit salty. With the low workloads, I think there's an explosion game coming for him. I think generally Cincinnati's in an okay place right now, and the Kansas City game was very impressive. It's funny you mentioned things that I might want outlawed. I would like the second Monday night game outlawed. Yes. I don't need 2 Monday night games. I want one that I can just sink my teeth into and watch from start to finish, and just be like a little meatball fan and not have to try to keep track of 2 things.
Last one for me, Andy, and we're going to get close to the time of year where people are going to be writing in and venting to you about players that are not, usually was mainly Atlanta Falcon players. I might have done that to you once or twice, but I'm a little concerned what we saw last week in Detroit. Maybe it was just a bad week, but seeing how banged up Tampa's defense was, and what would be your advice right now to any owner that has Sam Laporta?
Well, Tampa still has some vets who are really good players, and they can still heat up your quarterback a little bit. So, Sam definitely got involved as a blocker last week a little bit, not even so much in passing situations, but they really lean on him as a run blocker, especially near the goal line. I do think it's possible that, it's not just the Jamison Williams emergence, but also Jahmyr Gibbs. And we're only 2 weeks in, so who knows where this is going to go. But right now, if you take the on-pace numbers for Jahmyr Gibbs, he's on pace for 93 receptions. So he operates in an area of the field where Sam Laporta also operates. So that's a real threat to Sam's targets. I tend to think that Sam is going to settle into being as a fantasy commodity, as sort of a George Kittle-like player, where he ends up having 3 or 4 big weeks that make his season seem like it was, that put him into the top 5 comfortably at the position, that make his season seem okay. But the weekly floor for him is not what it was last year, perhaps. The weekly floor is probably 3 catches for 30 yards, which doesn't do anything for you in fantasy. Man, tight end has been such a bust this year. There are only 8 receiving touchdowns total by tight ends this year. And it's a bunch of guys that nobody's starting too. It's Foster Moreau, it's Elijah Higgins, it's Darnell Washington. It's guys that nobody's playing.
Andy, the late afternoon window, and Gene referenced the Detroit and Arizona game. I mean, that feels like a game that should be a fantasy bonanza with lots of offense and lots of scoring, you would hope. There's a couple of other really good games. It's a war of attrition in with the Niners and the Rams, and I'm curious as to how you're proceeding with your Rams wide receivers now with Kupp and with Puka Nacua both being gone. And do you see anybody elevating their game and taking control and having that kind of production that we've seen out? I mean, that's a high bar to clear, so I'm sure they won't reach Nacua or Kupp standards. But what about that game, and what about the Ravens and the Cowboys as well? It feels like we could have a fantasy bonanza in the late afternoon window on Sunday.
Yeah, the Rams are tough, and that's especially in a non-bye week like this. I just kind of want off that ride because there's nobody else there resembles Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua, as you say. I don't think anybody steps into that volume or can do those things. Demarcus Robinson is probably the best of the guys that you can start as a wide receiver 3 if you have to pick somebody up. But overall, especially against the Niners, I just don't I think the ceiling for the offense is so low. I'm just not interested in that right now until they can get Kupp back or Nacua back. It's going to be those are really significant headwinds. The Baltimore-Dallas game was crazy because it feels like a must-win for both teams. And Dallas is only 1-1. It's not really a must-win for them. But man, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Baltimore's got Buffalo after this one,
Correct.
Right? So
yeah.
You can't be 0-3 and then facing the Bills. It gets late early in the NFL. That is a crazy situation that Baltimore is all of a sudden in, and 100% of it for Baltimore is about the defense. They were an absolute elite, fabulous defense last year, and now last year's defensive coaching staff is just scattered all over the NFL. Right? They all leveled up. They all got new jobs. Patrick Queen is gone, so they were holding opponents to about 16 points a game last year, and they're giving up about 26.5 this year, and it's made all the difference. All the offensive weapons they're fine. Lamar's having a fine season. It's not perfect, but it's fine for fantasy. Mark Andrews made a little noise last week after a quiet week one. Derrick Henry's been fine. Everybody's fine, but the defense can't stop anybody.
Make Andy Behrens and the show on Yahoo a part of your Sunday morning routine. Andy, tell everybody about it.
Yeah, really appreciate you guys. Fantasy Football Live. We are an hour before kickoff on Sundays. Join us. We'll have all the late-breaking injury information, actives, inactives, and we'll give you all the fantasy spin.
Enjoy the weekend, Andy. Good luck.
Thanks, guys. Good luck to everybody.
You got
Thanks,
it.
Andy.
Andy Behrens, Yahoo Fantasy. Always good with this time to join us on a Friday and help us set our Week 3 lineup here en route to a championship, a fantasy championship for you and your squad.
Yeah, McDermott. I'm going to make my pick later on, but if you've listened to our experts and everything, not just from a fantasy standpoint, I think the Bills will kind of be able to move the ball here against Jacksonville coming up Monday night.
Jacksonville does feel like they're in disarray. It feels like there's zero buy-in offensively, and nobody really knows who's calling the shots.
Right, and when you have the who's calling the plays for their offense, and to hear Andy say that was just not a good game last week, and they're playing Cleveland. Well, Cleveland was a playoff team last year. I get it, but it's good Monday night here for Buffalo coming up.
We'll get to that and more next here in the Sports Bar. Going to take a break and come back, and we'll be joined also in the 4 o'clock hour by Thor Nystrom. Fantasy Life. We'll talk not just college football, but his Minnesota Vikings. They're Thor based just outside of Minneapolis with a 2-0 start. Who could have predicted it? Oh, that's right, me. We'll talk to Thor Nystrom as to why Sam Darnold and Minnesota and Minnesota are actually off to a better than anticipated start. That's coming up along with happy hour and plenty of time for your calls. Feel free to pull up a stool here in the Sports Bar at 866-4FAN. 585-866-4326. In fact, right now, let's give you a free pair of tickets to see Tom Segura, who's coming to KeyBank Center on September 27th. Be caller 5 at 866-4326. 866-4FAN. That's courtesy of Live Nation. Tom Segura, KeyBank Center. A free pair of tickets are yours right now if you're caller 5. Tickets on sale at Ticketmaster.com.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. Rochester, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester, sports update.
Your Football Friday for the Buffalo Bills. Just a walkthrough today with a game on Monday night against Jacksonville. Left tackle Deion Dawkins says the key for his team lies from within.
Just be ourselves, truly. Just do what we're coached to do. Focus on the technique. The technique will take us where we got it and got to go. You know, like we have to have a winning and technique every play, every rep, and that gives you that chance to be able to win. So just going out there and just being us.
Our coverage Monday will begin at 3 o'clock with the pregame here on the Fan Rochester. College football season, well, the week 3 begins tonight with Syracuse at home against Stanford. Tomorrow here on the Fan, St. John Fisher hosting Keystone. Our coverage of Fisher football will begin at 11:30 a.m. Final weekend of the season for the Rochester Red Wings as they are home tonight, tomorrow, and Sunday against the Iowa Cubs. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
They're going to be a desperate team coming in on Monday night with something to prove. So it's a little scary for me. 5.5 seems like a lot. I think this game goes 24-20. An 0-2 team facing a 2-0 team. Underdogs have been trendy. I think this is going to be a closer game than what we think because that's kind of the history of what this Bills team has been like the last few years.
Quite honestly, I could see this going either way. I could see this completely coming off the track and the Buffalo Bills running crazy all over the Jaguars. On the other side of the coin, this is also a team that, again, has talent on paper. Is this the week that they finally put it together?
Mike Danger.
You got to feel a little bit better about the Bills' chances of not just winning, but winning and covering on Monday night, knowing that Jacksonville right now doesn't seem like there's a lot of buy-in and there's some dysfunction going on there.
Gene Battaglia.
When was the last time they actually struggled against Jacksonville up in Buffalo? The Bills have won the last 3 up here, so right now I think it's looking good for the Bills to go 3-0.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Oh, that sounds like a tease as we give our predictions. Let's give our predictions during happy hour. What do you say?
I think so. I mean, like you heard the way I'm kind of leaning here, but that's what I love about, doing this show. It's kind of a journey because we get different opinions, we get different takes, and sometimes we're off, but I think more often than not, we kind of figure what we should be feeling here heading into a particular game.
Absolutely. We won't have a show on Monday because we'll be immersed in pregame. Early kickoff, 7:30. That's Monday night. You'll be able to hear the Bills hosting the Jags from Orchard Park here on the Fan Rochester. Again, pregame coverage getting underway right at 3 o'clock Monday afternoon. We'll be joined later this hour by Thor Nystrom, Fantasy Life, and we'll get his takes on not just tomorrow's action in college football. Of course, it all gets underway tonight at the Dome with Syracuse hosting Stanford. We'll get Thor's take on the Orange and the rest of this weekend's action, including his Minnesota Vikings and their 2-0 start. What's behind Sam Darnold's resurgence? We'll get into it with Thor.
Yeah, or is it just he'll become Sam Darnold again? I don't know. We'll go up to Minnesota here at the bottom of the hour. I love coming in when Dan DeLorean's on a good mood on Friday, and think of him. He's a Viking fan, Danger. He's a Met fan, and he hit the hat trick today. He's an Ottawa Center fan, and the season hasn't begun.
He's just all over the place with his fandom. It's so bizarre to me.
It is. Well, we all know people like that just you pick the random teams. Now, the thing I can say is, he sticks with his team.
Yeah, and I'm sure, like most, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. It's bizarre to me, but everybody that I know that has fandom that's all over the board, they have a reason why they're a fan of that team, and it's a good reason, so you can't really turn your nose up at it.
Well, no, in conversely, I have a friend from Fordham, really close friend. His name's Brian Nolan, and every year, growing up, we were like, oh, yeah, I'm a big Cowboy fan. I'm a big Niner fan. His allegiances would change to the point where we just kind of joke, whoever the hot team is.
Is that the one that's nicknamed Worm? Because that seems like worm-like behavior.
No, that's not Worm. Worm is down in D.C. Okay. But, we all know that person, too, that kind of changes their behavior. I'm bringing up Dan DeLorean and the Ottawa Senators for a reason. We got this news up north that they're going to get a new arena. Oh. Good for them. The issue in Ottawa is that, the arena is so far out up there. It's actually in the suburbs. It would be like if we built an arena here in Avon. And it's, relatively speaking, Buffalo is, of course, only an hour and a half away, but Ottawa's only 4. Pittsburgh's only 4. It's not that far if you ever wanted to take a trip up there. 2 questions I have coming out of this and how it kind of relates to us in a way. One, What is the Sabres clock here, or the clock for us here in West New York in regards to that arena? It's nice to get a new scoreboard and a new roof, but I'm just wondering how long the shelf life is for Key Bank. Once the Bills Stadium goes up, are we going to be having a brace for that paycheck coming our way? And then, two, funny how Canada, Danger, takes a hard line on some things, but not hockey.
That's right.
No, we're not going to subsidize an NFL stadium in Toronto. Well, thank goodness they didn't do that, because who knows if the Bills would have gone up there. No, we are not going to subsidize a baseball stadium in Montreal. We have other issues. Beat it, Expos.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll build hockey arenas in Calgary and Ottawa. Yes. What do you really need? Canadians are nice people, but they also are hypocritical.
I think they're very – wow. Our friends north of the border, you just called them all hypocrites. They're just so damn friendly.
Everybody's hypocritical.
To a point, to a degree, I suppose. But, hockey is their thing. That's theirs. And they, even though the NHL, their footprint in the NHL isn't nearly what it is south of the border here in the States, their pride in this sport being their thing, I think they do make concessions for hockey. That's their thing. Like the NFL is our thing. Like you can't, they're trying to make the NFL a global product, but it will always be our thing. American football is American football.
Right. And they don't want to lose any more teams. That's the way I kind of look at it. Like, oh, you can't make enough money here in Winnipeg first time around. We'll take that team. We'll take the team in Quebec City. And I don't know if you'll ever see another team up north when we talk about Canadian expansion.
Yeah, I mean, even when you think about the Jets coming back to Winnipeg, they're doing it in the smallest arena in the NHL. Like, it was a hard thing for them to get that done, and to get it done, they still built a new arena, even though it is not, it's a small arena in Winnipeg. But as far as I can tell, it's always sold out, and I think that's probably what you're shooting for here in Ottawa. Like, can we get an arena that people will go to? Can we get an atmosphere that is conducive to winning? Because the Sens have been, even with talent on that roster, they've struggled.
I could see it working too. I mean, downtown Ottawa is really nice in the winter. It's walkable. It's everything that I wish we had more of.
I was just laughing during the break. Had a little chuckle. The guy who caught the 50th home run from Shohei in yesterday's game was offered like an autograph and a photo of Shohei to return the ball to the Dodgers, and he basically told him to stick it.
Yeah,
which is like, yeah, that's what you want to do. I think. I mean, what are you getting for that ball? If you're the Dodgers, what's it worth to you to get that ball back? $1.5 million?
Well, you're dealing with a whole audience overseas. Do they collect over in Japan? And to what degree?
Oh, that.
I mean,
if you have wealth, you're probably you probably collect something. If you have any degree of wealth, and your collection is based on how much wealth you have. I'm
thinking that in Japan, somebody would be scratching some sort of check that would take care of that, and good for that fan. Anybody says, "Oh, you should give it back," you should. No, you shouldn't.
You got to understand, and it really was eye-opening to me. I always knew that there is an economy in collectibles. I didn't realize that there was not just economy in collectibles, but there's an economy attached to every player in every league, and that the people will pay top dollar for some of these collectibles for one reason or the other. And it might just be because they view it as an investment. And if you get the 50th home run ball by Shohei Ohtani, that's worth maybe $1.5 million now. What's it worth in 25 years? It's something you can pass off to your family, and it gives you this immense wealth just from being in the right place at the right time and holding onto it instead of handing it over for a friggin' autograph.
Yeah, it's the people you meet on vacation, Danger, met this gentleman, and he served as basically the CFO for Playland down in Westchester, and we see him every year, and he has 2 Mickey Mantle rookie cards. Oh. To the point where they're in a lockbox, they're insecure, like nobody could get into his home. But basically, when he passes, it's part of his estate.
That's right. 2
freaking pieces of cardboard, just that other people would value, and to try, in the planning of. You can't even enjoy that. They're so valuable. You have to go lock it up here in in a bank somewhere.
Yeah, and then I see things cross my feed like Ashton Kutcher, notably big Bears fan, talking about how he has a hallway dedicated to just game-worn jerseys from Chicago Bears gone by, that he's got a Sayers and he's got a Peyton and he's got an Urlacher, and all I'm thinking to myself is, man, that's a wealth that we should all aspire to get to, where you can actually say, you know what, I have the cash, let me go ahead and pay for that piece of memorabilia that really I have an attachment to for one reason or another.
Yeah, and there's people that like to collect just because, well, they think it's fun. And one of those guys, and this was the quarterback show on Netflix from last year, The Secret Room. It was like a speakeasy. Remember this?
Cousins, yeah.
Cousins, yeah. Like, hey, let me let you in. And it's all this memorabilia about him. Like, here's my high school helmet. Here's this. Here's that. Here's autographs. Here's this picture. Here's everything. I mean, like, if Kirk Cousins is doing that, what is the Von Miller room like that? If he's like wearing his own signature,
I just love that the guy is feeling himself to the point where he's wearing his own autographed sideline cap. All the beat reporters were kind of surprised by that. I don't think they knew that was actually a thing, or that was something that happened.
I think Perino just kind of sidestepped that because he's smart enough to know that he's got to ask Von Miller. Doesn't want to come off, if he's got to go get info from Von Miller, like he was like, oh, well, maybe. These guys are handed hats all the time. He didn't know. That's plausible, I guess. Like he signed it for some kids and then all of a sudden got it back to him or somehow.
I think it's a move. I think it's an absolute power move. After the game, showing up shirtless to take his press conference wearing sunglasses, dude is feeling himself. And I'm totally fine with it. You keep performing at that level, you wear whatever autographed merchandise you want to wear on the sideline, Vaughn. Go on.
Story we can get to this week. It's been a lot going on, but one on a Friday that I believe will make you chuckle. The negotiations between Liv and PJ. Do you remember this over the summer, Danger? We were talking to Brian Cole. Hey, we're going to have this news. And then earlier this month, hey, we're going to have these negotiations are going at a snail's pace. I guess they made some progress. These were the latest meetings on September the 11th and 12th. And there is one thing that PJ players, those that stuck with their own tour, are asking for the Liv guys to do, to give back some money. They're asking specifically John Rahm to give back some of his signing bonus for signing up with Liv. Rahm, dude, received $350 million.
Is that his signing bonus? Because he signed for more than $500 million.
Right.
When it was all said and done.
Correct. $350 million up front. So why? Why would anybody say, oh, you know what, for the betterment of the sport, here you go? No.
Absolutely not.
No way.
That's how bold of the PGA to even ask that. How arrogant to even ask that.
It's a stupid strategy.
It's insulting.
It is a stupid strategy by Jay Monahan. Like, that's how you're going to bridge the gap? That's how you're going to bridge the gap. Oh, okay.
It's insulting.
I don't think anything will ever get done, Danger. I think it's just going to be this peaceful coexistence, if you will. Hey, you're over there, we're doing here, and sure, and when it comes to the point system, whatever, but as long as those guys get to play in the majors, it's kind of a Francesa, right?
It's fun. It's funny to me that you just don't know where they are, right? I don't know where you would watch Live Golf. I don't seek it out. If you were to find it or stumble across it, even then, are you stopping? I was talking to a friend yesterday who's a big NASCAR guy, and he's like, I love NASCAR. NASCAR is my thing. And I'm like, talk to me, because I'm so curious about, what makes it a thing, what makes it, because I remember NASCAR in its heyday having big personalities and having people showing an interest in it when it was Jeff Gordon and all those guys, and Earnhardt and Junior and all, and it just feels like now, I don't even know. I mean, I know that NASCAR is tonight on the CW because we're not doing a Friday night game, right? But, like, where do you find it? Where did it go? What happened? And I worry that with Live Golf, it's going to be the same thing. Like,
oh, it is the same thing.
It's already there.
It's not, if you're not putting it in somebody's path, and part of this, too, Danger, and this is a little too inside here, but there is an act in Congress that you cannot buy airtime if you are a foreign government. Okay, well that makes sense, right? FCC, the F stands for federal, right? Where's this money coming from for Live? No one, and I mean no one, was giving that tour a legitimate TV contract. The only way that they ended up was that they had to buy their way onto some of these networks, including the CW. I believe they're still on there, but a lot of them actually like, with this act, we don't want to get called into Congress. That's one of the reasons why you don't see Live on there, because you not only are not going to pay for it, but even if Live wanted to say, hey, NBC, here you go.
I'm thinking about this strategy by Monahan and by the PGA to ask the Live golfers to give back some of their signing bonus to the PGA. Is this so that they can remain a quote-unquote non-for-profit, like they can accept this donation of goodwill from the players to keep them, to keep their status there? Otherwise, they're going to start getting, the feds sniffing around, wondering, like, how are you guys a non-for-profit?
Interesting. Apparently, that's also part of this, too, that the PGA is going to morph over to a for-profit.
They should.
Yes.
What are you doing here? I mean, like, the idea that they were always considered that, to me, is mind-blowing. Huh? What? How? And for what the NFL was also exempt for a long time as well, weren't they? Like up until, when was the NFL? Was it antitrust? I don't know. It was
antitrust.
Yeah, antitrust. So I'm getting my things confused here. But I just wonder if these, whether you're talking about Monahan or if they're trying to stay one step ahead of the feds. Nobody wants the feds knocking on their door and asking questions. So, hey, John Rahm, in order for us to continue to be what we are, maybe you give us a little donation and we can skirt for another few years here as what we've always been. But I think it's ridiculous. I don't think there's any chance that any of these golfers on Live should give up anything that they've already signed for or received for switching to the Live Tour. That's insane to me. That's ridiculous.
No, that's why. Nice try. You can ask, and the answer will be no. So
yeah.
I'm sure we'll get to this point next year. Like, and is that they ever going to merge? And we talk about worst commissioners in sports. All right, we make fun of Batman, but he's kind of a putz, right? We make fun of Manfred because I truly believe he doesn't even like baseball. But those guys are way better than this guy running this PGA Tour. Like, they have the lack of foresight, what was coming, how you can't get consensus, everything that kind of goes on to it. And he's still there? How is he still there? I thought they would have been like, hey, you're out. Like how is Jay Monahan still the commissioner of the PGA Tour?
Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing. But I think you're right. I think that the two can continue to kind of coexist. The Live will never really gain any ground or get any eyeballs on it. But when you see these guys perform in the majors, if they are still performing at a high level, then it doesn't matter if Brooks Koepka shows up at a major. Then it's like, all right, well, Brooks Koepka's name we all know. We don't watch him through the course of the season because he plays Live, but I'll pull for John Rahm. I'll pull for Brooks Koepka. I'll pull for DeChambeau had a nice season this year. All these guys.
Just a sidebar, like Rochester, 2033, haven't heard anything. They still haven't awarded that major, the PGA. No idea what Oak Hill's plan is, if they want to go for that again or hold out for a U.S. Open maybe a little bit later on. So I thought we would have had news about them awarding those next PGA championships, but so far, nothing.
We're going to check in with Thor Nystrom at Fantasy Life. We'll talk not just Saturday's action, tomorrow's action in college football. We'll also get a little preview of tonight's game as Syracuse kicks off the action with Stanford coming to the Dome. Also a little bit of fun, NFL talk, and specifically the Vikings, since Thor is based there in Minneapolis. We'll talk about that 2-0 start for Sam Darnold and Kevin O'Connell and company. Thor Nystrom of Fantasy Life joining us next on The Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the Sports Bar. update.
Just a walkthrough today for the Buffalo Bills, the extra day here, as it'll be the Jacksonville Jaguars coming up on Monday night at Oliver's Primes.
Yeah, I'm ready. Ain't nothing like a primetime game Thursday night or Monday night game at home. So it's going to be loud. It's going to be, under the lights. So I didn't kind of got used to playing under the lights last year, playing later games, a different time games. So I like playing underneath the lights.
The college football weekend begins tonight. Syracuse looking to go 3-0, the Orange at home against Stanford. We'll talk about this matchup and everything college football coming up next. Thor Nystrom from Fantasy Life joining us here in the Sports Bar. Tomorrow on The Fan, St. John Fisher football hosting Keystone. Our coverage will begin at 11:30 a.m. Final weekend of the season for the Rochester Red Wings. Tonight they host Iowa, also tomorrow and Sunday. Gene Battaglia and the Sports Leader, The Fan Rochester.
Neat or on the rocks? It's the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Always time well spent with Thor Nystrom, part of Matthew Berry's team at Fantasy Life, now joining us to talk some college football. And since he's based in Minnesota, we'll talk a little bit about the Vikings 2-0 start as well. Buddy, hope you're doing well. The college football weekend action gets underway tonight at the J-Man Wireless Dome in Syracuse with Stanford coming in. Syracuse undefeated on the young season. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on what you've seen out of the Orange up to this point and what you're expecting tonight at the J-Man Wireless Dome. How are you, bud?
Hey, I'm doing well, boys. Thanks for having me. Yeah, the Syracuse team has impressed me so far. The upgrade in the passing game, you go from Garrett Schrader, and then when Garrett Schrader was injured late in the season, Del Rio Wilson's injured late in the season. As you guys know, there was no quarterbacking at all. And you go from that to now Kyle McCord and the passing weapons that they have. Obviously, Gadsden's back too. He missed almost all last season. A guy that the NFL is really interested in is that big slot, skilled receiver. So the jump up in the passing game, that now complements LaQuint Allen well. The defense is the bigger question there now with Syracuse, but the offense, they can score with people. So this is a really interesting matchup against Stanford. For Syracuse, I think it's an advantageous one. You have a Stanford team coming across the country to play this one at night, primetime game. And the Kyle McCord passing offense with Syracuse goes directly into Stanford's biggest weakness, their pass defense. You can shred Stanford through the air, and that's what I expect to happen tonight.
Yeah, this sets up nicely. If they do that, the Orange get Holy Cross next week. And I guess my question here, Thor, is about the ACCs. Because if we're allowed to daydream here where this may go for the Orange, and we've seen what's happened to Florida State here. I mean, Clemson is ranked here, but what would you make of the ACC here in 2024?
Yeah, to me, you have those two teams that are in the grouping of their own, Miami and Clemson. Miami should be the prohibitive favorite to win right now. But then after that, you have a bit of a quagmire. I mean, you mentioned there's teams that we know are way, way down. Florida State way, way down from what we thought coming in. SMU, I think, is even down from what we thought coming in. Virginia Tech got upset in the opener against Vanderbilt. They're down from what we expected. North Carolina's way down. So to your point, there's a big, the second area there. We don't really know how that's going to shake out. I'm looking at my projected win total for Syracuse, the updated one in my system. You can get these projections at Fantasy Life. Syracuse, 7.6 wins right now projected in my system for the season.
Thor, we also got a matchup of two top 25 teams in the Big Ten with Nebraska hosting Illinois. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, Illinois is a pesky team. I watched every snap they took against Kansas. As you guys know, I went to Kansas. It was a brutal game to watch because Illinois, they just play smart football. They're not super duper talented, but it reminds me of Teddy KGB from Rounders when he says he just hangs around. Kids got alligator blood, and that's more or less what Illinois is, and they take advantage of other teams' mistakes. Illinois, here's the on-field handicap of this one. Illinois' pass defense has been really, really good this season again. You guys remember a couple of years ago when all four Illinois starters in their secondary were drafted in the NFL draft, including Witherspoon there at the top by the Seahawks. But their secondary is still really good. The pass defense has been a strength the entire time. Bielema has been there. It is again. Can you address Dylan Raiola? If you can hold Raiola in through the air in check, that's Illinois' path to hanging around in this game. turn it into a coin flip at the end, that's obviously what they want.
Thor Nystrom, our guest, Fantasy Life, as we're taking a look at the college football action tomorrow. So tonight we've got these two new ACC teams. Not Syracuse, not new, but they're facing a new opponent. And tomorrow we get a newcomer coming to a big-time program in the Big Ten. Number 18, Michigan, hosting number 11, USC. It's actually the Trojans, a 4.5 road favorite when I'm looking at. Thor, how do you view this matchup?
I'm happy that I got the 6.5 on Sunday. It dropped actually at 7, USC -7. I was able to get it at 6.5, and that line has just kept coming down. I agree with the market movement there, obviously. My system actually has Michigan as the favorite in this game by 1 point. I do think that there's some line value there, and I think that's because of perception, right? Everyone is watching when USC beat LSU in Vegas in the opener because that was the Monday night game. But we know now that LSU is a bit down. So it takes a little shine off it. I mean, not all of it. USC did win that game, but LSU obviously is not the team that they were last year. And then by contrast, Michigan, a whole heck of a lot of people were watching when they got blown off their home field by Texas. And so the residual things from both those events is what leads to a line like this. But USC is going to have to do through the air what Texas was able to do through Michigan, I think, to win this game. USC is not running on Michigan. So Woody Marks is going to get wiped out of this game, and USC is going to have to play one-handed. If they can have the success through the air, that's how they put the points on the board. The other point I wanted to make about this is Michigan's passing offense has been a travesty so far. They shockingly installed this kid named Davis Warren, who's this walk-on that there'd been no hype around as the starter coming out of camp. He had a 2-6 TD-INT ratio through the first 3 games. Michigan is now benching him for Alex Orji, the guy that we saw in sub packages last season. They bring him in, he'd run around. Orji's a raw passer, but he can't be worse than Davis Warren has been to this point through the air. Orji's has a 2-0 TD-INT ratio, just in limited action this year, but they'll be risk averse with him. But he is going to add to their running game. They have a good running game. So, and USC has not proven defensively that they've taken an enormous step forward. I think Michigan is going to be able to move the ball a little bit on them as well. So to me, that's more of a coin flip.
Thor, we've got an interesting Big 12 matchup with Oklahoma State hosting Utah, 2 teams that are in the top 15. Right now I've got Utah -1 point against Oklahoma State. What direction are you leaning in this game?
I'm leaning towards the home team in Oklahoma State. I've liked the way that they have played so far this year. They had some of the most returning experience in the nation. Ollie Gordon, obviously, he's the star there. He's going to be the enormous key in this game because Utah's defense, the way you get them is on the ground. Utah has a really good pass rush, and they have a really good pass defense in general. So if you need to throw to beat Utah, you've already lost the game. You can get them on the ground, though. And then one other thing about their passing defense against this Oklahoma State passing offense. Oklahoma State last year, they were in the top 10 as far as least sacks allowed per game. This year, they have allowed 0 sacks to this point. And the reason why is they have the quick hitting passing game. Bowman, their quarterback, he's not mobile at all, but he gets the ball out quickly. He's 6th, 7th year kid at this point. And so because of that, there's never any pressure on him. They rarely get sacked. That system itself, the way that they play, is going to neutralize Utah's pass rush when they do have to throw. But obviously, Ollie Gordon's going to be the way that this game is led. And then, of course, on the other side, Cam Rising is coming off the hand injury, a guy who has had durability questions his entire career. He's going to have to acclimate back in. You're now in a road game and a key one early in the season. This game could heavily inform the Big 12 going forward, speaking of wide open conferences. So I'm going to side with Oklahoma State in this one.
Yeah, you've got another matchup, Tennessee, Oklahoma. Now, the primetime matchups here, Thor, maybe you get Colorado, Baylor we can watch on Saturday night here, Minnesota against Iowa. That's a 35.5. Betting Iowa is always a good thing here. In terms of the matchup Saturday nights, which one are you keeping a close eye on here?
I'll be keeping the closest eye on Iowa, Minnesota, because I will be in the building for that.
All right.
in the pregame, I'll be wearing my Iowa stuff down there. It's the one day of the year that my fellow Minnesotans turn on me. But I went to grad school at Iowa, so they'll have to forgive me for it. But yeah, we'll be down there tailgating beforehand, and then going into the game, I'll put on a sweatshirt or something that doesn't show that I'm an Iowa fan before getting up in that press box. But that's obviously for me, that's the most interesting one. And it's a game where there is revenge on the line. Last year, Iowa thought it had beaten Minnesota when Cooper DeJean ran the punt return back for a touchdown with 2 minutes left to go. They reviewed it to see if he had stepped out of bounds. He didn't. But as they were doing that, they said that when he was waving off his teammates after the punt had hit the ground, get back. They said that was an invalid fair catch signal. They overturned the call. Kirk Ferentz said that it was the worst call of his entire career after the game. Iowa has not forgotten that, and now is their shot to go to Minnesota's home and get revenge. So that line was 2.5 earlier in the week. I definitely like Iowa in that one.
There's another one that is compelling to me only because I think some of us are surprised at just how rough a start this season has been for Florida State. And now you've got Cal coming in, getting 2.5 points. Is Florida State going to be winless after this weekend still, Thor?
I think so. Yeah, I like Cal to go in there and win that game. Cal has already gone across the country one time this season against a far superior opponent and beat them. That was Auburn. And in that game, Jaden Ott, their running back, did absolutely nothing. And they were still able to do it. In this game, Ott, from what I'm hearing, appears to be back for it and full strength because he got to sit out last week, even though he had been listed as probable because they were playing San Diego State. It didn't matter. Cal is their way up this year. And Ott hasn't even gotten going yet. When Ott gets going, I think that's a dangerous team. We talked about Syracuse before as a team that could elevate real quickly to the top of that second tier of the ACC, where then you're the third best team in the ACC. Cal is another team that you have to toss into sort of that sleeper bucket. They've already shown that they can do it. Florida State is just dying to be put out to pasture. I don't know what they're doing. It wasn't just, giving the entire offense to DJU through the offseason. They're funneling it through him during the season. We've seen DJU now for years. We know what he can do. We know what he can't do. The thing he can't do is sit back in the pocket and you allow him to survey, go across his options. He doesn't make good decisions. He doesn't have any pocket presence. So, the manifestation of his arm strength, they never come to the fore, and that's before you even get to the accuracy issues. I don't know what Florida State's doing. I could definitely see DJU being benched in this game and Cal outright.
Last college one, I want to ask you about, and then we'll get to your thoughts here on the Vikings. But since this will be in prime time too, Colorado, what I'm looking at right now here, Thor, is the Buffaloes are favored by 2 against Baylor. I'm fearful this is going to not go well here for Colorado and Coach Prime, and I'm wondering who is going to blame the media or something. How do you view this game?
Yeah, I sort of have a tendency to think the same, and the reason why is Baylor's offense is still not good. They have not fixed that. However, their defense is playing pretty well, and that's gone a bit under the radar. They've held 2 opponents to a field goal. The other game was a rock fight against Utah. But in the advanced analytics, Baylor right now, their pass defense, number 1 success rate, number 21 in yards per dropback allowed, number 6 in EPA per dropback. Colorado, all they can do is pass. If you can hinder their passing attack at all, they are neutered. There's literally nothing else for them to turn to, and they're Colorado's best running back, Dallin Hayden, I don't think he's going to play in this game either. So it's literally just pass, and Baylor has a defense, and specifically a pass defense, that has shown that it can shut down the opposing passing attack. Now, you have to say Baylor has not been tested by a team that could throw as well as Colorado so far. I mean, Tarleton State, there was the Utah game, and then Air Force, who doesn't throw at all. So, I mean, some of those stats could be skewed. This is a big test for Baylor, but if that secondary can show like they have so far, and hold Colorado down, they're going to win that game, and probably easily.
Thor, take us through the roller coaster of emotions you've felt so far this NFL season as a Vikings guy, because when JJ went down in the preseason, I know he's having a good preseason, and you and many were talking about how well he looked like he was acclimating to the pro game and Kevin O'Connell's offense. When he went down, I kind of just viewed it as, Sam Darnold has never been in a situation like this where he has really good skill position players around him and an offensive line that can block and most importantly, a head coach who could scheme guys open for him. This is Sam Darnold's best opportunity as a pro should he rise to the occasion, and through 2 weeks, it looks like he has.
Yeah, that's definitely right. And, Tom Brady was talking recently about how he had gotten 5 years at Michigan, going from QB7, then up to QB3, and then eventually the starter. And then how when he went to the Patriots, he got to sit for a year. And he was basically saying it's a mistake to start any rookie quarterback. And so, obviously what happened to JJ was unfortunate with the torn meniscus. But to your point, up until that point, JJ ripped up the Raiders in the first preseason game. And when O'Connell talked about him afterwards, we found our franchise quarterback, and then the rest of the comments were indicating that at that point, that competition was very close between JJ and Sam. And then you see what Sam's doing here in the first couple of games. That obviously shines well on JJ McCarthy. But to Sam Darnold, you mentioned it. The opportunity at the beginning, or lack thereof, going to the Jets, he was a redshirt sophomore when he came out. There has not been a ton of redshirt sophomores that have come out and then gone in the first round of the NFL draft, and the lack of experience then, and then all of a sudden you're tossed in with the Jets, where the coaching staff was poor, they had no supporting talent around him, and he was expected to be the savior immediately. That thing was never going to work out. And then in Carolina, it wasn't a good situation either. The Minnesota situation is tremendous. You have an awesome offensive line in front of you. You have the best receiver in football outside. And TJ Hawkins, we haven't even talked about him because he's injured right now. So he's going to get added to the party going forward. Jordan Addison has not been 100%. And yet Sam Darnold has looked the way that he has. Minnesota is also able to run the ball now. So that helps out that Kevin O'Connell is a tremendous play caller. But Sam Darnold, the thing that he has gotten way better at, it's the pocket presence and then the timing of the throws. And he's talked about the timing thing with the media about how earlier in his career, he had the same arm talent, he had the same physical package, but the timing just wasn't there. And so, you would lose that. And then the pocket presence and sensing the rushers, et cetera, just being off schedule. And that's the thing that he's really improved upon here, and Kevin O'Connell's helped him with it. Yeah, the Vikings are rolling now in a very interesting game this weekend against the Texans.
Yeah, Texans and a receiver that you're familiar with, we're familiar with here, returning for the first time in Stephon Diggs. And certainly the Minneapolis Miracle is something that you'll always look back and fondly, but then part of the Diggs story in Minnesota was, well, he forced his way out of there. So what kind of reception do you think he gets this week, Thor, and how do you view this matchup?
If my fellow Minnesota Vikings fans have any self-respect, they will stand up and give him a standing ovation in the pregame. Stephon Diggs turned the 155th overall slot in the whatever draft he was picked in into 4 seasons at a peanut salary of Pro Bowl caliber wide receiver play for the Vikings, and then he played the 1 year on the extension. And if Minnesota fans want to be upset that he forced a trade to facilitate the acquisition of Justin Jefferson, the best receiver in football, I don't know that there has been an ROI positive pick like Stephon Diggs in the history of the Minnesota Vikings organization. Having sour grapes is absolutely ridiculous. The fans should look at Justin Jefferson and realize that Stephon Diggs, that was a gift from Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, and the Bills are going to get a second-round pick out of that next year, too, for Diggs, with that move. Thor, what are your thoughts you're observing here on what has happened with Bryce Young and Carolina? How much are the management coaches to blame? How much is Young himself to blame? Was he not a guy that was worthy of the number 1 overall pick, and can he get himself out of this jam?
This goes to the organization. And when you think about Bryce Young, like, what do you like to do at Alabama? It's sort of like Kyler Murray. Of course he's undersized, but he's a solid athlete, but he doesn't like to leave the pocket and run. He likes to use that athleticism to evade people, buy time, and then find the receiver downfield. And an offense was never built around him that would work to his skill set in Carolina. But the other thing is, you can't have a game like that behind a bad offensive line. A great example from college in recent years that is not him. Remember Spencer Rattler? Yeah. Spencer Rattler, when he was at Oklahoma early in his career and he had the good offensive line in front of him, his redshirt freshman year. After that season, everyone in the 2 early mock drafts had Spencer Rattler number 1 overall. Obviously, Caleb Williams came in the next season. Well, then Spencer Rattler transfers to South Carolina for his last 2 years. South Carolina had one of the worst offensive lines in all the FBS, not just the Power 5 during those 2 years there. And so Spencer Rattler was constantly under duress. Well, he's the same sort of a player. He's an undersized guy that likes to maneuver around in the pocket, extend plays, and then hit receivers on, when they break off their route. That wasn't going to work behind one of the most porous offensive lines in the nation. It's the same thing with Bryce Young, but of course you have a compounding thing there of the lack of play calling to facilitate to his strengths, and then the lack of weapons around him. So it's a nightmare all around. The only thing that you can argue at this point with this decision is maybe you're salvaging his confidence by doing this, trying to get him back on track, but he might be broken beyond repair at this point.
Thor, I don't think it's ever too early to start talking about who we're going to be talking about next April in the NFL draft, and I know you're already kind of thinking that way as well. I'm curious about who might be atop that quarterback prospect list when we're talking about the 2025 draft for teams like Carolina that might be looking to go in a different direction. I think, by the way, if you're a quarterback getting drafted by Carolina, you should not go to Carolina. You should not sign with the Panthers. But an interesting thing happening in Texas with Ewers being injured and Arch Manning getting some time now. I don't think that Quinn Ewers is in danger of losing his job due to injury, but I'm wondering what that does for his stock come April. I mean, I watched a little bit of Carson Beck earlier this year. I know that Georgia was in a tight one against Kentucky last week, but Carson Beck looks like a pro quarterback already to my eyes. What are your thoughts on some of these prospects here as we start to look ahead as to who might be selected early in the 2025 draft?
Yeah, the Quinn Ewers injury is unfortunate because the Quinn Ewers that we saw against Texas, that's what a top 10 quarterback looks like. That's what a top 5 overall quarterback looks like. And the ascension was obviously there. He's improved his game quite a bit, or appeared to in the early going over last year, where it was more of the arm talent and then the schemed up concepts for him, but we weren't seeing as much of the high end NFL caliber decision making. That's what we saw in the early going, and in particular the Michigan one, obviously a high leverage situation. Now he's injured, and Arch Manning comes in. I thought your comment was funny because I had seen someone on Twitter, a Carolina Panther fan, and said, oh, good, now we can just wait around tank next year for Arch Manning. And someone had quote tweeted that and said the Manning family forced their way out of San Diego.
That's right.
You think they're gonna let him go to Carolina? No way. But I mean, seeing Arch Manning, that's going to be really cool. But we'll see how Quinn Ewers comes back later this season and how he's able to play. Texas obviously in line for a playoff run here. So how does Quinn Ewers play against those top-end teams? He could salvage his stock pretty easy, Ewers, as long as that injury doesn't linger, doesn't affect him. If he's playing like he did against Michigan in those playoff games, the SEC championship, et cetera, he's going to be just fine, and he'll be up there, and it's going to be a discussion between him and Carson Beck, because Carson Beck seems like the safe one at this point. Shadir Sanders obviously is – It's like the stock of the meme coins or whatever. It's just like up, down, up, down, up, down. Depending on the week, he's obviously fallen a little bit. Maybe he would be, more of a late first round, early day 2 guy at this point. But he certainly has a shot to pull out of this and play better down the stretch. But I don't know if the offensive line is going to pick up its play enough at Colorado for it to matter for Shadir. But we'll see.
All right, we're ready to go for tomorrow and tonight, for that matter, for Syracuse. From Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life, Thor Nystrom. Tell everybody, and again, tell us what it's like working with Matthew Berry and what kind of content we can go check out at the website here, Thor.
It's super duper cool. Yeah, like being able to know him, like look, he's like when I was a kid, it was like I'm watching him on TV and then listening to the podcast. He'd hate me for saying when I was a kid, but no, it's super cool to work for someone that is like one of your heroes in the space. And then at Fantasy Life, you can check out. I have all my projections there every week. The thing with the win projections going up and down, projected spreads for every game on the schedule, totals, etc. And then my best bets of the week. You can check all that out at Fantasy Life.
Thor, great having you on with us again, man. Let's do it again soon. Enjoy your weekend, all right?
Good talking to you, boys.
You got it.
Thanks,
Thor Nystrom, that's our guy. Fantasy Life, working with Matthew Berry. Great content, great knowledge, make you a smarter college football fan, get you ready for the draft, all of it. He's the best.
Do you realize what we did today? Like, I didn't realize. So yesterday was Ithaca Day. Today was Iowa Day. Sandy
you're right.
Barons, Iowa,
Yep.
and Thor did his grad work at Iowa.
Yeah.
Iowa, Minnesota. That'll be the late game of those games on Saturday night. Are you watching baseball? Or are you watching? Let's see. You've got Iowa, Minnesota at NBC, Tennessee, Oklahoma on ABC, Coach Prime and Baylor on Fox.
I'm going to tail our guy PJ and kind of follow along with some of the games that we were talking about earlier this week, and put my money where my mouth is and see what we can get out of some of these matchups. But those are all intriguing. I think Tennessee, Oklahoma is probably the most intriguing to me. I think that's the one I'll probably plop down and check out when I get the chance.
Florida State is home, but they're only favored by 2.5 against
Taking
Cal.
Cal on the money line. I'm taking Cal straight up. Give me Cal straight up. I think Florida State starts 0-4. They're a tire fire. I'm saying this, and it's a kiss of death, so I'm sure that they'll get the win somehow at home over Cal. But yeah, they don't look good. They, if you watched any of them against Georgia Tech in Week 1 or BC in Week 2, you just see an offense, and Thor mentioned it. Everything's going through DJ Uiagalelei, and it's just not working. It's a disaster. It's an absolute disaster offensively. They can't get any kind of consistency or continuity at all on the offensive side of the ball. Really appreciate Thor giving us some of his time here on a Friday afternoon. We've got happy hour next, and that means since we don't have a show Monday, Bills pregame Monday starting at 3 o'clock as the Bills kick off at 7:30 here on the Fan Rochester hosting the Jags. We'll give our predictions and our outlook for Monday night's game.
Yeah, we'll also have time for your calls here, too. 866-4FAN, 866-4326.
You're listening to the Sports. When you can have the thrill of sports talk. Ask your smart speaker to tune in to 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan Rochester and turn your home into a sports arena. WROC AM, WBEE HD2, and W239BF Rochester. The sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester. Sports Update.
Your Football Friday for the Buffalo Bills features just a walkthrough, some extra time with the game against Jacksonville coming up on Monday night. Left tackle Deion Dawkins says the key for his team lies from within.
Just be ourselves, truly. Just do what we're coached to do. Focus on the technique. The technique will take us where we got it and got to go. You know, like we have to have a winning and technique every play, every rep, and that gives you that chance to be able to win. So just going out there and just being us.
Our pregame coverage Monday will begin at 3 p.m. here on the Fan Rochester. College football tonight, an opportunity for Syracuse to go 3-0 as they host Stanford. Tomorrow on the Fan, St. John Fisher hosting Keystone. Our coverage will begin at 11:30 a.m. It's the final weekend of the season for the Rochester Red Wings, as tonight, tomorrow, and Sunday, Iowa the opponent. Gene Battaglia and the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
They're going to be a desperate team coming in on Monday night with something to prove. So it's a little scary for me. 5.5 seems like a lot. I think this game goes 24-20. An 0-2 team facing a 2-0 team. Underdogs have been trendy. I think this is going to be a closer game than what we think because that's kind of the history of what this Bills team has been like the last few years.
Quite honestly, I could see this going either way. I could see this completely coming off the track and the Buffalo Bills running crazy all over the Jaguars. On the other side of the coin, this is also a team that, again, has talent on paper. Is this the week that they finally put it together?
Mike Danger.
You got to feel a little bit better about the Bills' chances of not just winning, but winning and covering on Monday night, knowing that Jacksonville right now doesn't seem like there's a lot of buy-in and there's some dysfunction going on there.
Gene Battaglia.
When was the last time they actually struggled against Jacksonville up in Buffalo? The Bills have won the last 3 up here, so right now I think it's looking good for the Bills to go 3-0.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
It is happy hour in the sports bar. Man, thank you for joining us, making us part of your weekend and your everyday routine. We know how many options you have for sports information and entertainment. The fact that you choose us on any of our, we counted 7 platforms, is it's much appreciated. You can watch the sports bar on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, our stream on Twitch as well at The Fan Rochester, the free-to-download Odyssey app, your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan, and of course, locally here at 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan Rochester, always free as well in the Odyssey app. When you search out the sports bar, you'll find all of our guest appearances, and I promise more of our full shows as well. I'm Danger, that's Battaglia, and Gino, I know we're going to talk about Monday night's game. We don't have a show on Monday afternoon, so we'll give our predictions for Monday night's game here this evening before we cut off for the weekend. But it is a weekend where I'm so excited. It's another weekend where you don't have that kind of building anxiety to leading up to Sunday afternoon kickoff. It's a stress-free football weekend if you're a Bills fan.
Yeah, you can watch Minnesota and taking on the Houston Texans, or how many of these games? I would imagine Cleveland against the Giants might be something that we'll all be kind of keyed in on because, hey, if you're the Browns and you can pick up a W at home, all of a sudden it doesn't look as bad, and conversely for the Giants, that's you're looking at an 0-3 start there. The Jets and Patriots, they all already took care of their business. I'll tell you the game I'm really looking forward to, the fact that Baltimore lost last week. In a way, if you're a Bills fan, I think you want the Ravens to go down and actually win in Dallas, because the Ravens at 0-3, you figure that's not an 0-3 team. So, I'm already looking ahead to next Sunday when Buffalo has to go down to Baltimore. So, Ravens, Cowboys, the loser of that game is in a world of hurt. And I love this, Danger. We're only in week 3. We're talking about teams that really are in danger of falling out of it.
Yeah, and one of those teams are facing the Bills coming up here on Monday night with the early kickoff at 7:30. You'll hear the game on the Fan. Rochester pregame gets underway at 3 o'clock. And when we're talking about just the overall weekend and everything that we're going to do and everything we're going to consume, Gino, can I just take a detour for a quick second here? Because I'm going to start my campaign right now during happy hour on Friday, September 20th.
Okay. We're marking this date. Boom.
Here's my campaign. And, Gene, you're a part of this.
All right.
I'm going to do something that I haven't attempted in quite some time.
Watch baseball?
Nope. I'm going to enter my chili into our company chili cook-off. Now, I've modified and I've added some tools to the trade. There's some tools and some weaponry in my arsenal. I'm going to make a brisket Texas chili for our cook-off, our chili cook-off, our Odyssey chili cook-off coming up here on Thursday. Now, I know there's a couple of other chilies and there's a few other dishes that are being entered into this, but it is still a competition. Everybody gets a chance to vote.
This is how serious they take it here? They just changed the rules for this. Did you see this?
Can't vote for yourself.
How was this not a rule beforehand?
Should have been a rule beforehand.
Right.
No, I entered a chili of mine in the chili cook-off years ago. I don't believe I placed. It was a really crushing blow to my ego. But you know what? Like anybody, you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, you work hard, you modify your game, you get stronger at your craft. I'm feeling pretty confident right now that my chili can come in and clean house. You haven't tried my brisket chili. I've shared it with a few friends. I've shared it with family. I'm going to smoke the brisket this weekend, make the chili midweek next week, let it sit on the smoker, let it absorb all of that wonderful flavor, and then serve it up to everybody on Thursday. I know you can't say that I can't ask you for my vote. You've never tried it, but can I at least get you to?
Oh gosh!
You know what I'm serving up. I'm telling you what. Everybody knows what's being served up by who.
Now now I have to rearrange my plans because going into this,
I know you didn't want to go.
Right? No, I would go, smile.
That's
shake
right.
Some hands.
That's what we all do.
And then I call it the Irish goodbye. Just kind of, I'm not announcing that I'm leaving, but hey, Gene was here, and then
that's right.
I've got a lot of things
stuff to do, including a show that day.
Yeah, we have a show at 3:00. I mean, I would love to hang out and have some cold ones and eat some chili here. But now that my friend is entering the contest and he really wants to win, now I feel kind of obligated that I actually have to stay. And this is like 2 hours. 2 hours?
It's not going to take 2 hours.
No, come on. It's going to be 2 hours if we have to wait around. This should be half hour, yum, vote, and you're on your way. The days of the massive lunch danger, they're gone. I'm sorry. We're busy.
Look, I know I'm not an official member of Grills Mafia, but I'm going to get after it this weekend with the brisket. And the brisket that is going to, serve as the meat foundation for my chili that I'm going to serve at the Odyssey Chili Cook-Off coming up on Thursday. So I'm actually really fired up for it. I've got the pregame jitters that people have, and I feel like it's the night before a race. You get the butterflies in the stomach. I'm ready. I'm ready for it.
Yeah. All right. So now, but the thing is, it's blind though, right?
It's blind, but the email today told everybody who is bringing what. So I think there's a handful of dishes that are being served, but I think there are only 3 chilies being served.
Okay.
One is mine. One is our buddy Rich, who works in sales for us here, one of our great account executives at Odyssey. And the other is Breezy. I can't lose.
Oh, wait a second.
I can't lose to Breezy.
You're bearing the lead here. So for folks who don't know, Breezy Moose Danger actually manages that station, 98PXY. You've done a great job for not years, decades, buddy. You've been this pillar in the industry.
25 years. I'm still waiting for my watch.
You're going to wait another 25.
I guess so.
Dude, you cannot lose to Breezy.
I can't.
Breezy, she would be the person that would, oh gosh, I forgot about this. Hormel chili, warm it up, throw a little cheese in there. And
I'm not going to say that that's what Breezy will do. I think she's got a white chicken chili that she's going to serve up. Now, my stance on beans. If it's a chili with beans, I'm not eating it. For the sake of this competition, I'll sample, but I will not eat I will not have a hearty bite of that chili because I refuse to consume a bean.
Thing. There are plenty of great chilies with beans. So.
Beans suck. Just get those beans out of here.
So you might be penalized though if somebody's looking for. Are you using corn in this chili? What
no,
else?
It's meat. It's a Texas chili, man. It's all meat.
It's all meat.
That's right, isn't it? That's the way chili should be. Just meaty. Just meat. That's all I want. If I'm having chili, I want heat. I want meat. And I want to be able to taste it for half an hour afterwards. Like, it's still with me. That's good. That's good chili.
I'm saying that's your take. There's some other people would say, this doesn't have the accoutrements to it.
Well, look, my take back to that was it shouldn't need accoutrements. It should just, the taste alone should be enough. That should be enough.
So you can't vote for yours, but I could be the deciding vote here. So
I'm just, I want you to know that I'm counting on you, and I'm not asking for you to do it. If you think it sucks, then don't vote. I'm not asking for a pity vote. I don't think it sucks.
No.
I think it's a good. I think when you try it, you'll be like, damn, that's good. That gets my vote. That's all I'm saying.
Plus, I think there's the prize for this too, right? You just don't get a trophy.
I really don't know. I entered without even knowing what the benefit was, other than I want to win.
No, we don't do anything just for fun. Yeah, we play football to have fun.
No, I want to win.
We want to win.
I want to win. That's all I care about. I'm entering to win.
Do you play fantasy football for fun? Because come into our league, we play to win.
That's right.
Win.
That's right. All right, back to the Bills. Back to Monday night.
Back to Monday night. Breathe easy, everybody. Like after hearing and talking to me, O'Brien, 1010XL, and hearing the stories of who's going to call the plays here for Jacksonville, and Doug Peterson. This is his second go-round as a head coach. Is he really feeling the fire here to figure this out, or did he get the money up front and like, I got my Super Bowl. I'm all good. I just don't think Jacksonville comes in as this team that is going to upend the Buffalo Bills. Travis Etienne aside, like Gabe Davis is going to get over on Christian Benford or Kirk or any of the other. Evan Ingram likely not playing in this game. I think there's going to be opportunities, and after how the Bills didn't run last year, and part of that was danger, it was Ken Dorsey not calling running plays. They only attempted 10 runs with their running backs last year, so the game plan was also kind of sketch from the get-go. I really think, and I would point to, it was last year, or was it 2 years ago? A Monday night game against Tennessee at home, and a team that you always had trouble in Nashville, but you mowed over here in the early going. I would believe that the Bills will do this to Jacksonville. I am not saying that it's going to be Jacksonville with the points. I say the Bills cover here, and I think it's going to be, what does Muley say, a bleu?
A bleu.
Yeah, I have this 27-10 Buffalo. I think that it's not going to be one of those games where the Bills will come out and all of a sudden they're up 14-0. But by the end, you're going to be like, okay, clearly the Bills are the better team. The extra time for Buffalo also helps out in this regard.
There's a lot going into this game for both teams. I love the vibes around Buffalo right now. I think the vibes in Buffalo are fantastic. There's plenty of reasons to be worried or concerned, but you're not worried or concerned because the guys that have stepped up in the case of the injuries to Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard and what you've got going on with DeMar Hamlin back there at safety. Defensively, everybody Cam Lewis has stepped up in place of Taron Johnson, right? Jamarcus Ingram had himself a night last Thursday night. So the vibes in Buffalo are unmatched right now. If it was just a pick on vibes, I would be like, yep, Buffalo's got this. And that, I think, does factor into it. The fact that, Josh Allen in that game against Miami didn't have to do anything. He didn't get hit. He really, he had great protection from his offensive line. With Jacksonville coming in at 0-2 and facing 0-3 to start the season, man, that feels like a team that's going to come in desperate. And my fear with Jacksonville is that they have an ability to potentially out-physical the Buffalo Bills. We've seen the Bills so far this year get physical in the run game and mow people over and maul. And I hope that that's what we see. But there have been lapses where Jacksonville specifically has been more physical against the Bills in the Sean McDermott era. I like the Bills to win. I don't like the Bills to cover. I'm kind of with Fates on this one. I think he said 24-20. I'm 24-21. I think the Bills win, but I don't think it's going to be a comfortable win. At least it doesn't feel like it's going to be a comfortable win just because of how much Jacksonville has riding on this game. Now, hearing from Mia O'Brien from 1010XL in Jacksonville yesterday and hearing her talk about the lack of kind of continuity offensively and who's calling plays, and you certainly see what looks like a lack of buy-in on the offensive side of the ball for Jacksonville, is that plays in the Bills' favor, obviously, But I think if you're Trevor Lawrence, this is a wake-up call. You made that money in the offseason. You got your owner calling you out. You have to hear the chirps that are happening, and you have to step up and rise to the occasion. I think this is going to be tight. I don't think it's going to be as comfortable as last Thursday night was, but I do think the Bills come out of Monday Night Football with a win at home.
I want to go back to one thing you said earlier. I forget which guest it was. Was it Thor or Andy? How could you not like the doubleheader? The doubleheader on Monday night should be a thing.
I don't know.
Love it.
I don't know if I love it. I'm going to be flipping back and forth, and I don't want to flip back and forth.
No, you don't need to flip back and forth. They keep the score bug up there. Like, that's the cool thing is, like, they will throw it back since these are, it's the same family, ABC, ESPN, and the Bills are the first one up, which is kind of telling, right? Because they put Cincinnati, Washington on the network, and the Bills are on ESPN. So who I should look this up. Forgive me. Who is actually calling it on ESPN? Is it?
They're number 2. Yeah, who is their number 2 team?
Yeah,
over
I
there
would
at
think
ESPN?
they're putting Buck and Aikman
Levy?
on. Yeah, maybe
It's Levy and the crew.
Yeah.
Lewis Riddick, I would imagine. Yeah, so look, it's an interesting weekend ahead for the NFL when you look at some of these matchups and you look at some of these teams that are going to come in and be pretty desperate, and we've talked about them throughout the course of the week. Will the Eagles rebound against the Saints looking to go 3-0 with Philadelphia, licking their wounds from a game that they should have won on Monday night. Will the Buccaneers remain undefeated in dispatch of Denver at home? What does Miami look like without Tua as they travel to the Pacific Northwest and take on Seattle? Rams and Niners is a great matchup in the late window on Sunday afternoon is exquisite. Get your honey-do list out of the way early on Sunday because you've got Niners, Rams, Ravens, Cowboys, Lions, Cardinals in the late afternoon window. Sunday night, Chiefs, Falcons, fine. But that late afternoon Sunday window is chef's kiss.
All right. You're not getting Buck and Aikman, but you're getting this crew here, Danger. Would you rather have Buck and Aikman or Chris Fowler, Lewis Riddick, Dan Orlovsky, and your sideline reporter is Laura Rutledge?
That's good. That's a good crew.
Yeah, it is a good crew.
It's a good crew.
It's better. Do you remember they used to do the second when they would do the double headers? It was always like a West Coast. Hey, it's Mike and Mike calling the game from Oakland tonight.
I remember that, and I remember, of course. I mean, how do we forget?
Beth, Coach, it's a pleasure to be with you guys here on the field from up close, just watching Coach Vance Joseph from here. You watch him now on the screen. This diversity in his background is helping him a lot tonight. Quarterback at Colorado, defensive back in the NFL, and here he is having the time of his life this night, making his head coaching debut.
Sergio Dip was never heard from again. But that was the Beth Mowins, Rex Ryan game.
Sergio Dip. Is there it'll never be topped.
That's it. You want to talk about kickers getting the yips? That's a broadcaster getting the yips, poor guy.
I think right now Vance Joseph is actually having the time of his life.
And then Buck can't let it sleep.
No.
Buck has to rub his nose in it. Poor guy.
That was following week, I think, the Broncos head coach was.
So Buck and Aikman, look, I know that a lot of fans, have strong opinions on the primetime, whether you're talking about Tirico and Collinsworth, Buck and Aikman. Buck and Aikman, to me, are still, there's a bigness to their broadcast. There's a bigness to their call. However, it's not lost on me. Last week, I was worried about Aikman. Aikman, throughout the entirety of the game between the Eagles and the Falcons, it wasn't Bijan Robinson. It was B.J. Robinson. I'm like, does he know? Does he know it's Bijan and not B.J.? Is B.J. a nickname?
Or did he? I mean, Aikman is so big. I was wondering. Wait a second. Did maybe we've been doing it all wrong all along? Maybe he actually goes by B.J.
Yeah, maybe. That was and look. Last week we talked about this. The 5-hour love affair with Jason Kelsey on ESPN was just a little bit too much to stomach. I know you're in Philadelphia. I know it's the Eagles' home opener, but my God, are we objective at all? There were people from Atlanta watching that game as well. I don't know that we'll get. I I don't know. Maybe that crew that's coming to Buffalo, maybe it's the same. Maybe that's just the MO moving forward for ESPN. Hey, we're visiting this town, and we're not going to talk about Jacksonville for the entirety that we're in Buffalo. It'll be nothing but flaming tables and buffalo wings leading up to it.
In fairness, and I know we have one Falcon fan listener because I brought this up in the past, but like that is like as far as a fan base, nameless, faceless. You're the second most popular football team in your town. Georgia football, I would say, is more like the Atlanta Falcons. You're not offending anybody by not talking about the Falcons here.
Well, you're offending Arthur Blank. I mean, he's got to get his name up in the Ring of Honor this
Arthur
weekend.
Blank. This is hilarious. We touched on this yesterday. Chiefs, Falcons, and they do every team does their Hall of Fame, right? And the Falcons entering in their Hall of Fame is the owner. Which, I mean, is it? I would like to be in the Hall of Fame.
Do you think he did what I just did with the chili cook-off? Maybe a little campaign, little internal campaign,
or was it like a Chip and Dale, like from we insist you must be in? But no, I cannot, Mr. Blank, you have to be in our Hall of Fame, Mr. Blank, please.
Fine.
Oh, okay, I'll do it.
Humble. By the way, have all the soda you can drink and a couple of hot dogs and bags of chips on me.
These billionaire owners crave attention just like many other so-called celebrities. If you get a chance here, we didn't touch on this because there's so much going on, but read the piece on ESPN, the campaign by Bob Kraft, to get into the Hall of Fame. He wants this so bad. He sees Jerry Jones in the Hall of Fame. He sees other owners in the Hall of Fame. How could I not be in the Hall of Fame? I don't know, like Deflategate maybe.
Yeah, you're a cheater.
Cheater, yeah.
You're an absolute cheater. And then you had that whole scandal with the rub and tug down there.
That's like right up on the list, the Orchids of Asia there.
Oh, you remember the name of the place.
Well, I just read the article.
Good memory. Oh, it was in the article, the campaign?
Yes. Yeah, it's like that's a big strike.
There's another guy I'm worried about. You know, they showed him last night on the Thursday night broadcast. He's one of these guys. I didn't realize that people still did this. He's one of these guys that will sit on the seat but not set the seat down all the way. He'll the seat is in its full upright motion, and he'll sit on the seat just to kind of get a little bit more height. He was doing that last night. You know what I'm talking about?
Like you need a booster chair, or you got to sit on a phone book. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I realize that's kind of.
Why would you sit like that? That doesn't look comfortable. Like it was weird to see him sitting like that. He wasn't sitting fully in the seat. He was sitting, but he was sitting on the seat as it was still in its upright position with the folding part, still upright instead of down where you would actually sit on it. And I saw it, and I'm like, it's a billionaire. Why is he sitting like that? He didn't have to. He's a billionaire. He can sit wherever he wants. He's choosing to sit like that. Who chooses to sit like that? So I'm a little nervous, a little worried about Mr. Kraft there as well, campaigning to get into the Hall of Fame. You know what? You do this long enough, and you kind of see how the sausage is made, and you realize everything is kind of manufactured.
Well, I mean, I'm just wondering, like, if Mr. Pagula, we would love to have you on the Buffalo Bills Wall of Fame. Oh, yeah. Look, I joke about that. Who was like one of the first guys to go up? Ralph Wilson. Oh, we should name the stadium after. Yes, I insist. That was also egregious, too. Like, what the hell? Sell the naming rights so we're not paying so much tax revenue.
Right. At the time, it seemed ridiculous. It was ridiculous. When everybody else in the NFL was making millions and millions off of naming rights.
I'm going to name the stadium after me.
Nope.
Okay.
Mr. Wilson, would you consider this large pile of money to just put our company's name on the stadium? No, it is my name on the stadium. Okay. Doesn't seem like a great business move, but you're the boss. Amazing. We'll get to a round of shots next on The Fan.
Yeah, it's something we haven't talked enough about today, Danger. What we saw last night down in Miami with Shohei Ohtani. Fantastic. Unbelievable. Will Carmelo Anthony's son actually be going to Syracuse? He kind of spoke about that. We've got that, and now first Dan Campbell, now we got somebody else who's having their privacy invaded here, and where's the line when it comes to this stuff?
Oh, yes, passionate fans. They're just passionate fans. Of course they are. We'll get to a round of shots. Don't forget about last call. You could share your predictions for Monday night as well before we close up shop. 866-4326 is our phone number. 585-866-4FAN.
update.
Friday saw just a walkthrough for the Buffalo Bills as they're getting ready for the Jaguars on Monday. Ed Oliver is primed.
Yeah, I'm ready. Ain't nothing like a primetime game Thursday night or Monday night game at home. So it's going to be loud. It's going to be, under the lights. So I kind of got used to playing under the lights last year, playing later games, a different time games. So I like playing underneath the lights.
There will be a practice tomorrow, team off on Sunday. And then Monday, our pregame coverage will begin at 3 o'clock, 7:30 the kickoff from One Bills Drive. College football begins tonight with Syracuse at home against Stanford. Tomorrow here on The Fan, St. John Fisher football looking to get their first win of the season. They take on Keystone. Our coverage tomorrow begins at 11:30 a.m. Final weekend of the season for the Rochester Red Wings as they host the Iowa Cubs. Gene Battaglia on the sports leader, The Fan Rochester.
Bills, Sabres, Amerks. Your home for live sports is 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
You're back in the sports bar. Happy hour continues. Time for a round of shots.
Yeah, more on tonight's game. It is not a sellout at the Dome, but expectations are high for the Orange nonetheless. They're an 8.5-point favorite over this new ACC team, Stanford. 7:30 the kickoff on ESPN. Look, let's be honest, it's not your best lineup for college football this Saturday. We have better things on the horizon, but here's the best of it. The noon kickoffs feature number 3 Ohio State at home against Marshall. That'll be on Fox. Number 21 Clemson hosting NC State on ESPN at that time. The best matchup might be at 3:30 on CBS at the Big House, where number 18 Michigan hosting a newcomer to the Big Ten. Number 11, USC. The Trojans, a 5.5-point favorite. Number 17, Notre Dame, also on at 3:30 on NBC. They take on Miami of Ohio. And Coach Prime, once again, in prime time. Colorado taking on Baylor, 8 p.m. on Fox.
I think I saw that Colorado football is down 55% from this time last year. The shine is kind of worn off on Coach Prime, and much as usually the case, like we build them up and then we can't wait to tear them down. And you know what? With Coach Prime, I think the guy has kind of turned out to be a little bit of a BSer, right?
Well, it's a lesson in life. I don't know if he's a BSer or it's all about managing expectation. When he burst onto the scene and they're winning games and they're having this style well, you just set the expectation. Not only will you win games, but you're going to be a playoff team and you're going to be doing these great things. It's difficult to build a program. It really, really is. They had 1 win 2 seasons ago. So is there any shame from going from 1 win to 4 wins as they did last year, and then maybe you get to 7 this year? But you set the bar so high, and now, when I'm hearing the Feinbaum quotes, he's gaslighting everybody. There's some things going on. Nobody is criticizing your players in this regard. Nobody is saying anything like that.
That's right. Yeah. Maybe he's trying to do that to fire his guys up or use it as some sort of motivation when there isn't a need to do that. I just think that the guy is kind of proven to be a charlatan, and I don't know that I necessarily believe what he says when he says it anymore. I don't know that I ever did. It's fun. It's entertaining. And I want to see them do well because I think when they do well, it's good for college football. But I also think if you're going to talk the way he talks, you need to be able to back it up. And this team just hasn't been able to back it up. That offensive line is terrible. And so there's clearly some deficiencies on that roster that includes, a couple of his kids and a guy that will go in the first round, Travis Hunter, who's exquisite. He's an unbelievable player. So.
Yeah, there's talent, no doubt. Talking about great athletes and their sons, Carmelo Anthony's son is Kyan Anthony, and he's a 4-star basketball recruit who will be making his decision soon. Talking with Meyer Metcalf of ESPN, Carmelo's son says Syracuse is a finalist, but Dad never pushes it on him just because Dad's name is on the gym there, basically.
Right.
Yeah. Kyan Anthony says he's going to choose from these finalists: Syracuse, Auburn, USC, Florida State, Ohio State, and Rutgers. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rutgers. It'll be in the next 2 months, and he expects to take another visit to Syracuse before his final decision.
All right. Let's see the wheels in motion here, right? What's this all about? How much of an offer can we make him to get him to come to Syracuse? How much are they going to give him an NIL? What's it going to take?
Is that in his best interest, though? I'm just asking, just for the same way, and this might not be the best analogy, but we brought this up, as a street free agent. We're like, no. Chad Kelly should not come to Buffalo. This is not the best environment. He's not his uncle. Like, would this put undue pressure on
Would it
Kyan?
be a bad look for Syracuse to not be able to sign a 4-star recruit who's the son of one of your best basketball players of all time? Is that a bad look for the university?
Some would say yes, and for the reason I just mentioned, I would say no. If it's because I want to go develop. If you're being honest, he's not a 5-star basketball recruit. You have to understand. Go back in time. Carmelo Anthony was one of the greatest recruits that Syracuse ever landed. Okay, coming out like, whoa, we got Carmelo, and then he freaking delivers. And that's why fast track, hey, what you saw was real. You saw it as a recruit. You saw it 1 year, and then he's in the NBA as the number 3 overall pick. His son isn't that. So can we manage the expectation on that? And will everybody, if he comes here, be cool about that? If he's going to be a freshman and maybe not, maybe get a few minutes or maybe not. That's, again, I think it's kind of cool that Syracuse, just don't go to Rutgers.
Well, I think that Rutgers, I mean, he's probably from the tri-state area, right? Like, if I'm not mistaken, didn't Carmelo, and he was married to the girl from MTV, right?
Yeah, Lala. Yeah, I don't know where they settled down. I should know.
I wonder if that, but he was playing for the Knicks at that time, and maybe there is something to Rutgers. I for selfish reasons, want to see him end up at Syracuse. I think it's a little bit of a bad look if Syracuse. He's a 4-star recruit. You're right. It's not a loss if they don't sign him, but I think it's a little bit of a bad look. Like Carmelo doesn't think highly enough of this program that his own son would go there.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Syracuse really didn't have a training facility for their basketball program. Then Carmelo said, okay, we're going to fix that. The Carmelo Center. It's really nice. Not Woj with this report, but rather, remember Woj retired, Ramona Shelburne.
Yeah, Ramona, step up into that insider role. Go on.
Joel Embiid and the Sixers agreeing to the 3-year, $192.9 million max extension.
Jeez.
Guarantees the former MVP a total of $299.5 million through 28-29.
Amazing. Just amazing amount of money being thrown at NBA players. That's fantastic.
Here's my take on Embiid, right? Because we all hate load management. This is the guy you need load management for. Play him sparingly. Who cares? You just stumble into the playoffs, okay? If you can have him healthy and kind of starting out, I would just really limit his minutes.
I would wonder then why you would give him the 3-year max. I mean, we know how great he is when he's on the court, but I think a part of that is you got to be on the court, dude. We need you out there. We don't want to be a 6th seed. We don't want to be in the play-in tournament. We want to be one of the best teams in the East. We want home court advantage in the early rounds of the playoffs. I just hate load management so much, and I know he's injury prone. I get it. Like,
right. So
if he's injury prone, then why are you paying him all this money if he's injury prone? Then make him somebody else's problem.
Because he was either going to get paid by Philly or somebody else would have said, "Oh, come on in here." So, yeah, for the Sixers, the team that just can't get over the top there. If that wasn't the greatest single-game performance at the plate, Danger, last night, please tell me what was. Shohei Ohtani, I'm sure everybody knows by now. 6 for 6, 3 home runs, 2 stolen bases, homer number 51, steal number 50, first 50-50 man in Major League Baseball history. Part of the credit here, too, should actually go to Marlins manager Skip Schumacher. It's the 7th inning. Runners for the Dodgers on second and third, first base is open. This game meant something to the Marlins. I'm sure they're walking him. Schumacher can be seen mouthing, F that, I'm not saying the word, meaning pitch to Ohtani, you coward, don't walk him. Ohtani then hits a 3-run homer.
Yes.
Yeah, I would have thought that maybe if it's the Padres or some team like that, yeah, he's getting.
You issue the intentional walk. What I also find fascinating about this Major League Baseball season, specifically Shohei Ohtani, and he's probably going to win the MVP. I don't think he should, but I think he probably will win the MVP, right? This is something that's never been done before. He's remarkable. He might go down as the best player of our life, of our lifetime, the best player ever in Major League Baseball. It wouldn't be a stretch to say that, right? And just a few months ago, this guy was mired in a controversy that would have made him, one of the most maligned Major League Baseball players of all time. This gambling controversy where his interpreter is gone and gone away for a long time, and we've just kind of forgotten, like, the way Ohtani's people in Major League Baseball made this go away, with the haste that they made this go away, I don't know if I should be scared or impressed. All of it, like it was, nobody's asking questions about it anymore. He's proven innocent. We can move on. He's a 50-50 guy. We love Shohei. He's probably the MVP. All of these things, and we forget that just at the beginning of this season, not that long ago, just a few short months ago, this guy was wrapped up in a really ugly gambling controversy.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, the speed of which they made this go away, and the interpreter just admitting guilt, and that's it.
Gone.
Okay, nothing else to see here, folks. Either this interpreter is like one of the biggest crooks of all time, or is he the biggest fall guy of all time? Like, trace the money. Like, is his family getting taken care of? I mean, we're allowed to wonder about all of this.
Yeah.
Because Ohtani's name, that's coming from his bank account. And the feds just kind of look the other way. What makes this difficult is the obvious. You've got a culture barrier here. You've got a language barrier. And for us on the outside and for the media, it can be kind of difficult, but it's one of those things that we should have in the back of our mind.
And maybe it's an honor thing. Maybe the interpreter realized, hey, I better fall on the sword in order for him to be the great player that everybody knows he can be and not have this.
Fall on your sword, give your life?
Yeah, basically.
Give your life.
Like, I that's how much I admire you. That's how important we feel as a culture you are, that you can be the greatest of all time. Unless, if this is pegged to him in any way, then he's got a black cloud over his legacy. Let me eliminate that black cloud. Let me ruin my life so that yours can flourish.
See, like Ohtani has an ability that you and I don't think the majority of us would not. Either Ohtani was involved in this, and again, authorities said he's not, so we have to go under the premise that he's not. Wouldn't this be like a great distraction? Wouldn't you be furious if somebody robbed you? Somebody very close to you schemed like that and robbed you. And how could that not carry over to the field? How could that not impact everything in life? And yet, hey, it's August, and here's Shohei's dog throwing out the first pitch. Like they have just completely redone the image. Danger, this is at a level where the NFL had an alleged double murderer in handcuffs in the orange jumpsuit. Shame, shame, shame. And now he's a player in the Hall of Fame we all celebrate in Ray Lewis. The Ray Lewis makeover was unbelievable. I thought the NFL could never be topped. And again, Ohtani might just be, like, legally, he is just a tremendous victim of this, but the fact that nobody even brings this up anymore.
Nope, we've moved on. The news cycle moves on way too quick, and it's a great season. It's an unbelievable accomplishment. He's going to go down as the best ever, but I'm not going to forget that what happened earlier this year and how I mean, it's impressive, I think. I think it really is impressive how they were able to take what would have been a real tarnished image at the start of the season and turn this guy into a deity. And one guy falling on the sword. And if it's all true, then it's all true, and everything kind of washes out. But I still have questions, and I still can't believe that they moved as quickly as they did to clean this story up.
There is a story here, Danger, coming up. If I'm forecasting stories next week in the sports bar here, this will be a story. It'll be happening during our show on Thursday of next week. What am I talking about? Well, the Texas Rangers will be playing at the Oakland Coliseum, 3:37 first pitch local time on the East Coast. I should say East Coast. It'll be, whatever time out there, 12:37 getaway day. That will be the final game in Oakland.
Oh.
So that's coming up on Thursday. Now, in advance of that, beginning the homestand, the New York Yankees. So it's the Yankees' last trip ever to the Bay, playing on the East Bay, I should say, in Oakland tonight. For the Yankees, seems like they avoided a major injury here as outfielder Juan Soto got x-rays just to make sure. He went in hard to the wall to try to catch a foul ball last night. He did catch it, but man, that cost him. Soto vital to the Yankee lineup. He's batting .286 this season, 40 home runs, 120 runs scored, 103 RBI, and he's going to make a lot of money, whether that's from the Yankees or somebody else.
The Yankees got to re-sign him. I mean, it's not even a question. They have to re-sign him.
Well, do the Yankees re-sign him, and do the Mets re-sign Alonso. See, I think Alonso's a different case. Alonso's older, number one. He plays a position that is not as valuable. First baseman, you can kind of plop there. So by the end of the contract, he's basically Albert Pujols, meaning like he's going to be a DH. Also, Danger, let me just kind of take a second.
Go ahead.
Just stating facts.
Go ahead.
For the first time in New York Mets history, they've scored double-digit runs in 3 consecutive games. You're not hitting the music for that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want me to be impressed?
Thank you. Mets fans, rise. This is our time. No more being called misfits. No more being put down. This is a team you can take great pride in. As the Mets, 2 games up on Atlanta, as we are entering the final 9 games of the regular season. How many, Mike Danger? Yeah. I'm feeling confident that 2 weeks from now, we will have the return of New York Met playoff baseball. Oh, it's bad for the show, Gene. It's not really good when your team wins. Danger has no response.
I don't have any response because you're just doing it all for me. Go ahead. Keep going. I shouldn't care. I really shouldn't care anymore, but I don't want to see it happen to you again. I really don't want to see you disappointed, and you're getting yourself way too wound up over this. You need to act like you've been there before.
So fun.
If this is going to be a playoff team, then you need to act like you've been there before. And you have, by the way. When was the last time the Mets were in the postseason?
That was a loss to the Padres a few years ago.
That's what's in
2021.
Okay, so before the goofy dad rap.
Yeah, that was
against the
season.
Phillies.
That's what it's in.
Yeah.
Finally, we had a story about Lions head coach Dan Campbell, the coach having to move because people found out where he lived, and, well, you need more privacy than that. Well, now comes this story out of Nashville where Titans quarterback Will Levis was getting random text messages berating him for his recent performances and losses to the Bears and Jets. Yes, the cell phone number Will Levis was somehow leaked. Well, it's not leaked anymore. He changed numbers.
Just get a grip, fans. Get a grip. Knock it off. You're trash. You're a trash human being if this is what you do. It's unbelievable to me that anybody would think that any of that is acceptable.
If you're a few in,
it doesn't. No excuse. There is no excuse. You are a trash human if you think sending a text message or even a direct message on social media, or even worse, like what we had with Dan Campbell, going to his house. What is wrong with you? Get a grip.
My buddy Andy once called Dan Dierdorf, had his number. Dan Dierdorf, hello? Yes, I'd like to speak to Mr. Fat Ass, please.
Now that I can get behind.
You can get behind.
It's a little fun. It's just a little fun. Having a little fun at old Dan Dierdorf's expense. If you missed any of today's show, we'll get it up and on demand for you wherever you get your podcasts. Feel free to download Odyssey app, Spotify, Apple. Thor Nystrom from Fantasy Life, Andy Behrens from Yahoo Fantasy, both of our guests. We thank them for joining us. We'll be back on Tuesday on The Fan Rochester.
You're listening to The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.